got his own billiard room.
Yes, it's what do you call it, Kramer?
The billiard room.
No.
The name.
The billiard? Not the billiards. It was. Come on, Rudy. Come on. We call it the
place to be.
The place to be. Yes, it's the place to be.
Then I shall be there.
Now, it's time. Live and in living color. The Grandy Man can.
Time to play the game.
Well, you always left me satisfied and smiling. So.
That's what she said.
Why do I want this?
Yeah.
Because I want to make bank, bro. I want to get ass. I want to drive a Range Rover.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is now time for the Place to Be Podcast. And now your hosts, Justin Rosero and Scott Criscolo.
Place to Be Nation, welcome to another great episode of the Place to Be Podcast. I want to wish you all, of course, a happy Independence Day, and to our listeners in Canada, happy Canada Day, which happened this past Friday. And for the rest of the listeners around the world, we welcome you to partake in any other festivities you may wish to do so. And of course, joining me, as always, is the man who never curbs his enthusiasm, and that is my PIC, Scott Criscolo. Scott, how you doing?
Good evening, Mr. Rosero. Happy 4th of July to you, sir. And happy 4th of July again to all of our listeners here in America, and happy Canada Day in Canada. And for our listeners overseas, I don't know if I'm sure our English British friends probably don't care that our Independence Day is at their expense. They're probably too young to even care. But it is a nice Monday. I hope you enjoyed your weekend, sir. I did as well. I took a few days off in Vermont and back in the groove. And tonight we got a fun show, a little smorgasbord, if you will, of topics to discuss. It's funny, we always talk about how we're not going to do headline shows anymore, and then we have a headline show tonight, but things just keep happening. Wrestling and TV, things just keep happening. We don't get a breather, but we do have some fun stuff to talk about. Of course, listening to our intro tonight, one of the topics involves a fine television program, and we may have a little surprise for you later on in the podcast, perhaps, but we'll get to that later.
Yes.
We got a lot of wrestling to talk about. We'll talk some little bit of baseball. The All-Star Game picks were chosen, and I know a few Yankee fans out there probably a little irked at a couple of picks that were not made. We'll get to the starters and relievers and reserves in a little bit. We could get into the NBA Lockout if we wanted to, but really there's nothing to talk about.
I think it's too depressing, honestly. I mean,
it really is. It really is, particularly for you because obviously you made your pick. Who knows if it'll be your new team? You're kind of in limbo.
Yes, did we announce that on the show yet? I know we announced it on the Facebook page.
We announced Facebook page. Why don't we do it now very quickly? For those that have obviously been listening to our podcasts from the beginning, and thank you. For those that are joining us brand new, we'd like to make one plug. We'll do it again at the end, but if you haven't had a chance to, please listen to our interview with Ring of Honor superstar Eddie Edwards. It was tremendous. He was an awesome guest. Yeah, it was an awesome guest. He was a lot of fun. And we did that last week. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that one yet, when you're done with this one, pop that one on. It's a tremendous listen.
We actually have been able to line up some more guests coming off the strength of that interview. And it helps to have your feedback.
Yes.
I asked on a few places this weekend if you could continue to bring your feedback to help us hone our interview skills. What you'd like to hear more of, what you like to hear less of in these interviews. And also, obviously the more hits we get, the better to help us go out there and land some big names. So we got some cool names from the world of wrestling coming up.
Yes.
And we're going to try and spread those out best we can so we don't, bunch them all up in one shot. So we'll spread them out and bring them to you over the course of the summer and into the fall. But yeah, we got some cool stuff planned. So yeah, as Scott mentioned, let's quickly touch on the NBA. I did proclaim on our last headline show that whatever team drafted Marshawn Brooks would be the team I now root for. And of course, the original team that drafted him was a team I currently rooted for, and that was the Boston Celtics. But I pretty much knew immediately, thanks to the magic of Twitter, that he was going to be traded to the New Jersey Nets. And with that, I was traded as well from the Celtics to the Nets. So I am now a New Jersey and eventually Brooklyn Nets fan. Glad it was that team. I like the idea of going to Brooklyn. I like Jay-Z. I like the Russian dude. So, a lot of good stuff there. They got a pretty good young team. I think Brooks is actually going to be better there than he would have been in Boston. Doc Rivers not really known for a guy that lets his young guys go out there and get a lot of playing time and run and gun, which is what he'll be able to do with the Nets. So,
and the other thing I like about the pick is I think Avery Johnson however long he is the head coach with the Nets, does focus a little bit more on defense. And obviously, and this is not a knock on your beloved Friars, but your last two coaches could care less about defense. Yep. So I think Marshawn needs a little bit of tuning to play D, and he'll be even more valuable than he is right now. So I think that'll help the Nets.
I think it's a good spot for him. He's not in a team that's going nowhere, like if he ended up in Minnesota or Charlotte or some team like that. You know what? Charlotte's actually kind of maybe started turning things around. But a team like Minnesota that really is still bottoming out. The Nets are kind of more on the rise, I think, especially moving into a new arena with an owner that will spend whatever. So, I'm glad. I'm happy with where he ended up. I was just hoping it wasn't Minnesota. And I was hoping for something kind of local so it's easier for me to follow.
Right.
I get the Yes Network. I don't get the games, but I'll be able to watch any kind of pre and post game if they ever play again. So that's it. And once the Brooklyn jerseys are released, I'll go ahead and get myself a Brooks one. So
yeah, I think they'll be very nice. Our good friend Dr. G, who's obviously a Brooklynite, he's wondering if they're going to keep the nickname Nets. I would think they probably will. I don't think what other weird name they'll come up with. I hope they come up with, and this is where I'm looking forward to Jay-Z's input with the Vladimir Putin of the NBA. Because I think new uniforms would be awesome. I've kind of worn thin of the whole silver, white, red thing. I'd like to see some really jazzy, sexy-looking unis for this new team. And I think with Jay-Z getting his input in, and I think you're going to new arena. Our friend George wants them to be called the Brooklyn Bridge. I don't think that's going to happen.
He wants the arena or the team?
He wants the new team nickname to be called the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm not a big fan of that. Only reason I say that is because.
Sorry, you said the word sexy, so whenever you say something creepy on the show now, you're going to have your theme song.
I'm never going to let I'm sure Joe Laurinaitis is going to call me and wonder who the guy's peeping in his window. But
make me go back and play the quote for you.
Oh, please
when I see a beautiful girl with a guy, I'm like, I'm really happy for them, but I wish it was with me. So anyone who doesn't know what to talk about, go back to our SummerSlam 90 vintage ball.
And just think of of the police's Every Breath You Take. But anyway, I told him, I said, I don't see them needing to change the nickname. I mean, there's already the Golden State Warriors already have the Golden Gate Bridge as their part of their logo. You don't need another team with a bridge.
No,
I just think Nets is fine.
The Nets, the NYETS, as Bill Simmons calls them.
I know. I think the Brooklyn Nets is fine, but I think new logo, a new uniform, new color scheme would be sweet.
Well, the Nets too has a lot of history behind it. It's not like it's just
right.
a new expansion franchise. I mean, there's the ABA history and then the NBA history. So I think there's a lot to it. I think they should keep the name, and I think they definitely should get new uniforms and a new look though. So that's why I'm going to hold off on buying the jersey.
I agree. I concur.
Until he gets out of New Jersey.
Right. But as for the lockout and the whole labor situation, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. And I know you're a big David Stern fan, but I think the players are going to actually it's more the owners that are going to be the real hard-ons in this case, not more the union.
The union was actually again.
No, the union. The whole situation is a piece of the league revenue that the players want. And the NFL was happy with, I think, 40%, or they wanted 52%. The NBA was happy with 40%. The league offered the NFL, Goodell offered the players union 52%, and the players turned it down. So right now, the NFL is kind of screwing the NBA because now the players looking at that going, well, maybe 40 is not a good total, So unfortunately, with two major union issues back together for one half of North American sports, it's very unnerving.
I still think, and I've thought all along that football's gonna get solved.
I think it will too.
I just think there's too much money involved between the teams, the leagues, the merchandise, the stadium sales, fantasy football, gambling. I just think there's way much more at stake for the NFL. They only play 16 games, so NBA can come back with a short season and probably not lose out on too much. NFL, I think if they do a short season, it really, really hurts it on many levels since there's only a handful of games as it is.
Right, and and a couple more quick points. The 6 NBA owners that actually own NHL teams, our Stanley Cup champion Bruins, not one of them. They want a lockout because when the NHL didn't have a season in 2004, 2005, the NBA actually made pretty good money.
Right.
And when the new deal was signed, the NHL owners actually made out better. So the NBA wants the 6 teams that have multiple owners or owners that own multiple teams actually want a lockout.
Well, hockey in general, I mean, hockey and college sports obviously stand to benefit a lot if both of these sports are locked out.
Yes.
Hockey will definitely cash in, and obviously college basketball, which already does well, will do probably even bigger numbers.
And college football.
Yes, yep.
And I mean, there could be there were rumors I heard that if there is a lockout, if the NFL doesn't start the season or have a season, which they are, but just for the heck of it, there were rumors they were going to spread the schedule out, have primetime Sunday nights, because NBC needs games.
Right.
So the NCAA may sell NBC one game a week, so that might be a big nationally implicated, something of that nature. I don't think that's going to happen, though. And number two, as a fan, if they last another month, I don't think anybody's going to care. Number one, people aren't. If you're a fan of a good baseball team, you don't really care about the NFL until week 4 anyway. I know you're a diehard Jets fan, but let me ask you this very quickly. I don't want to stray this off, but I want to ask you because our good friend George, who's also a Yankee fan, doesn't totally pay attention to the Giants until for you, since you guys always make the playoffs, like week 7. Are you like that too?
No.
Or do you focus on the Jets right from the beginning?
Yeah, I'm in right in the beginning because honestly, baseball in September as a Yankee fan is very rare that they're in any kind of race for a playoff spot. There's been a couple years, but generally they at least have either the East or the wild card in pretty good hands.
Right.
So it's easy to kind of, shift and move on to football. And then once the playoffs start, it's very rare that it's up against football. So it's easy to do both.
Okay.
I know it's rare for you.
Yes. No. I'm
ready
for the Cowboys now, but honestly, as a fan, and you can understand this, both of us working as part of the NFL Network, preseason games is like watching paint dry. Yeah. So, and honestly, nobody really cares about.
The funny thing is, when I was doing the work, I rarely watched the games because we were doing everything else but watching the games.
Oh, that's true. Unless we were.
I was not bored. I will tell you that. I was definitely never bored during preseason.
No. Of course, no. It's for those that know the industry. It is very busy. Anyway, we won't belabor this point any further. But
I did want to talk quickly about how cool it is as a hockey fan that's coming back to the sport over the last few years. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that Winnipeg kept the Jets name and didn't go with the Moose name that was rumored out there.
Right.
I'm happy that the Winnipeg Jets in their original form are back.
Yes.
Like I said, that was the team I always used back in my NHL '96 computer game. So I was glad to see them make a return. I'm all for all the Canadian teams. I wish there were a few more of them. So.
Well, I was very upset during the '90s when teams moved. I know that the dollar in Canada wasn't great, and everybody wanted to. Part of you got to blame Wayne Gretzky because not him personally, but you got to blame the league when Gretzky went to the Kings. Everybody thought hockey in California was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So the Ducks came, the Sharks came.
Well, those teams do pretty well, though. I mean, the Sharks do very well. And even the Kings, I think, do okay. It's really this teams even further south than that. Well, I mean, there's some that work, like Dallas works, but
Dallas
Phoenix,
moved from Minnesota, right?
Phoenix, the Panthers, Atlanta. Those are the teams that are struggling. Some teams still do well, like Columbus. They're an unusual city for a hockey team, but they do pretty well, I believe.
I never understood for the life of me why they put a hockey team back in Atlanta. I never understood.
I don't know why any teams are in Atlanta.
Well, I don't either. I get so angry. I do. I think the one team that does okay, believe it or not, is the Hawks. Even the Falcons do.
Yeah, it depends. If the Hawks are doing well, I think they do pretty well. But it's I guess it's any city really. But I mean, obviously, I wish other teams would move back, and because hockey at this point with their cap is really one of the teams, one of the franchises that can, or one of the leagues rather that can succeed having franchises in small markets as long as there's a passionate fan base. Like I think a team could come back to Hartford and do well because I think there's enough of a fan base to be passionate about it, and owners don't need to spend overwhelming amount of money now.
Mm-hmm. I agree
with the cap.
I would love
so
a team in Hartford. Yeah,
I think a team in Hartford would be cool, and I think a team which I think will happen going back to Quebec.
I think it's any
Quebec
doubt.
City, it sounds like it's going to happen. So
I think it's awesome. I would love to see a team at the old Le Colisée, which is not called that anymore. It's now the Pepsi something.
And you can't complain too much about them going to Colorado. Obviously, they've won a couple of cups, and they did well there. So
yeah, I want to correct I don't want to say a fun fact, but I don't know if we talked about this. I know you and I talked about it privately through email and our board, but we talked about when Ray Bourque was traded. I think it was while we were talking. Oh, it's while we were talking to Eddie Edwards last week. Ray Bourque was actually traded. I got the year wrong that they won it. He was traded in 2000, but they won it in 2001.
Okay.
You had thought that he got traded earlier, but
I thought he was Colorado. I thought he was part of the '96 Cup Colorado.
No,
team.
he was still in the Bruins because the All-Star game that year was in Boston.
Okay.
And he won the MVP of the game. So no, he wasn't traded till February of 2000. He played the rest of that season with Colorado, and then the next year, Joe Sakic made him co-captain, and then the Avalanche beat the Devils actually in 2001 to win the Cup. So I just want to clarify that. Cool. But I would love to see like Phoenix had no business ever having a hockey team either, and Gretzky just unfortunately made that team even worse with all the gambling and all that other nonsense. So I would love to see a team go back to Quebec City. And then I'd be fine. I mean, I'm very glad that after all this mess, the Flames never left Calgary, the Oilers never left Edmonton.
Yep.
The North Stars moving to Dallas kind of bummed me out, but we do have the Wild, who aren't that bad. They could be better, but they're not that bad. And yeah, Columbus is crazy, huh? Who would have thought a team in Central Ohio would actually be a hot team? But they do very well at the Nationwide Arena. They haven't made the playoffs yet, I think. Maybe they made it 1 year, I think.
No, I think of those three teams, Nashville's the one that's made it. Atlanta, Nashville, Columbus. When those three teams came about, I'm pretty sure. Yes. I'm pretty sure Nashville's the only team that's made it.
Yeah, Nashville has had, and they had a great year. They gave Vancouver fits in the second round. So we'll talk more about it throughout the summer. We'll do a little bleeps and blurbs about the NBA and NFL situations. Hopefully. By the time we get to the beginning of August, we'll have an NFL season.
Yeah, because we have a lot of stuff planned on this show for the NFL, picks and fantasy and all kinds of shit. So hopefully,
season preview and
hopefully it happens. And actually, we are setting up also for a college football preview. Regardless, we have a special guest who's a big college football fan. So I will probably sit back and let you guys go at it for 3 hours talking about college football. So.
No, it'll be a fun time. I always look forward to, and I know that the overall situation in college football is not great, but it's still fun to watch. I always love it. I love being on campuses. I love tailgating. Always been a big college football fan. Obviously, I'm excited for Notre Dame this season. One of the top young defenses in the country. They got 7 top 10, recruiting picks. They're gonna hopefully be good this year. So, and of course, it'll be the 3rd annual game of our little mini rivalry. The Chargers of New Haven against the Greyhounds of Assumption.
Yes. We'll
be playing again this year up in Worcester. 2 years ago, we made our first game in that nasty drizzle. Oh, remember that? That was awful. Yep. And I got to tour your lovely campus. That was nice. And then last year, you couldn't make it, and Assumption beat us again. So
2-0.
Yep. And we're the defending conference champions. The Northeast.
I just continue to whip on you now. The Yankees took 4 out of 6 on the Mets, which we'll get to a little bit later. And
yes, I know.
Assumption 2-0 on New Haven.
On New Haven. Yep. So they'll play again, and I think it's 3rd week of September. So we'll talk more about that as we get closer. Why don't we start the top of our list as we normally do with our headline shows? We usually do all the wrestling stuff first.
Yep.
So why don't we get started with that awesome promo last Monday night on Raw involving CM Punk that really took you by surprise. He came out at the end of the match between R-Truth and John Cena, a tables match. I think that's what it was.
Yep.
And Cena was put through a table. Truth won. And Punk walked up the ramp and then kind of sat in an Indian-style position. And at that point, anytime Punk does that, I always, you always wonder what's about to happen. And he went on this mini tirade, if you will.
Vincent K. McMahon's imaginary brass rings, that it's finally dawned on me that they're just that. They're completely imaginary. The only thing that's real is me, and the fact that day in and day out for almost 6 years I have proved to everybody in the world that I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even in commentary. Nobody can touch me. And yet, no matter how many times I prove it, I'm not on your lovely little collector cups. I'm not on the cover of the program. I'm barely promoted. I don't get to be in movies. I'm certainly not on any crappy show on the USA Network. I'm not on the poster of WrestleMania. I'm not in the signature that's produced at the start of the show. I'm not on Conan O'Brien. I'm not on Jimmy Fallon. But the fact of the matter is I should be. And trust me, this isn't sour grapes. But the fact that Dwayne is in the main event of WrestleMania next year and I'm not makes me sick. Oh, hey, let me get something straight. Those of you who are cheering me right now, you are just the biggest part of me leaving as anything else. Because you're the one.
So, and of course, he obviously goes on from there. a few points I want to make before we get to the main debate. Obviously, a lot of wrestlers and people in the industry standing up for him, defending the Punk stuff. Steve Austin, one of the biggest people on Twitter, saying it was a great promo. I think Chris Jericho as well, and a few other guys. Of course, The Rock rebutted and basically told Punk that he's in the main event because The Rock will draw more in one night than Punk has in his career. So be that as it may, the point still stands on Punk's behalf. And, as we talked about with Eddie Edwards, I liked this promo because it was done within the storyline enough to where it wasn't just, oh my God, he's coming out and shooting, all the smart marks are jizzing in the pants kind of thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a Russo-esque, oh, let's just go out there and do this shit for the fun of it. It made a lot of valid points on that level, but also within the storyline, within the angle, it made a lot of points, I thought. The fact that he said he's going to win the title, take it. He's not, he's not promoted by the company. Like that's stuff that a wrestler in storyline, can still, would still have a gripe with. So,
right.
But let me ask you this right out of the gate.
Sure.
Does this make it, in your mind, more likely that he's staying or less likely?
I think he's leaving anyway.
Okay. So you think this doesn't affect anything?
No, I don't think it affects anything. I think it's. I said this to you off mic. I didn't mention it. I might have said it during our interview with Eddie. I don't remember if I actually said it or not, on air or off air. But Punk is more of a. This promo reminded me of a more controlled and a more cerebral Brian Pillman. Not necessarily because he was shooting, and he didn't mention Booker Man or anything like that. But he knows what he's doing. And I think the company knows what he's doing.
Oh, obviously.
He would not have. Trust me, you didn't play the end part. And no, the end part did not make me mad. Everyone wanted to say, "Oh, you hate Punk now," when he said incompetent daughter and doofus son-in-law. Look, I'm not Triple H's keeper. He can be made fun of as much as he wants.
Triple H, I'm sure, is perfectly fine. And you can say anything you want about that guy, but he definitely knows the business, and he's not going to take something like that the wrong way. He knows that it was done. As part of a promo to help build business. It wasn't, a personal shot at him.
Right.
Regardless of how people feel about him, I think he's secure enough in his position at this point that he doesn't care what Punk goes out and says.
No, and I think at that point, they didn't cut the mic off before that. So
no, that's how you know that, somewhat this stuff was planned. And I guess Dave Meltzer's come out and had a report saying that, they knew some of the stuff he was going to say, but a lot was, just kind of off the cuff. But they would have cut him off a lot sooner if it was stuff that they didn't want being said. And to me, obviously when it gets to the bullying stuff, they cut it. The USA Network thing was probably the iffiest thing, actually, saying the crappy show on USA. That's probably the thing that could get them in the most trouble, honestly.
Yeah,
none of the other shit really matters in the long run. If Triple H was really angry, he'd be out the next week burying Punk anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't think that's a problem. I think the USA thing, but I'm sure they cleared it with them first, that he was going to just kind of bag on him a little bit. And
right.
Well, the funny thing is, a lot of USA shows are actually pretty critically acclaimed, aren't they?
Yeah, they are very good. What is it? Blue collar or white collar, whatever the collar.
Psych.
Psych is very good. The only show that I've heard's a little shaky is the one with the witness protection. I don't always remember the name of that show. The girl.
Burn Notice?
No, that's the guy who. The CIA guy who gets dumped in the middle of Miami. The other one.
That one's pretty good too, right? Doesn't that one get a lot of...
I'm not a big fan of it. My dad likes it. But what's the other... No, the one with a woman in plain view, blind sight, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
That one I've heard is a little shaky. But the other shows on USA... Look, in the Attitude Era, the one good thing about Raw was they had great shows before and great shows after. Even our good show, Walker, Texas Ranger, was very good. La Femme Nikita... Pacific Blue, yeah. La Femme Nikita.
Pacific Blue starring AC Slater.
That's right, yes. Mario Lopez. So really, there's USA shows are really not that bad. I think Punk was just being
all the way back to Murder She Wrote and Silk Stockings back in the mid '90s.
Silk Stockings, Murder She Wrote. Yes, of course, living in our dreams and fantasies through the Biography Network.
You know how many tapes I have, like the Raws from like '96, and that has the last 10 seconds of Murder She Wrote theme on it.
Yes, you got the credits down to. You have the Best Boy and the Gaffers down to a T for all the Murder She Wrote episodes. But no, I think the promo was very well constructed. I think the other thing that people took by surprise, which ended up not being a surprise, was the whole thing involving Heyman and Brock Lesnar. I think people, when he first said that, were like, "Oh my God, he said Brock Lesnar's name," and then you're like, "Wait a minute." And then you hear 2 days later, Punk is talking with Brock, and now Brock's kind of talking with Vince. Like, you knew eventually that something was going to come out from that. I don't think he was just going to say that, and then they would have cut him off well before anything else if Brock and Paul were not. Vince is not the one that hates Paul in that company.
A little slick stalking, too.
Outstanding.
Rob Estes?
Yes.
All right, we have to have Derek make us open with this song behind it.
Yes. Rob Estes in between his early 90210 and late 90210 runs.
Yes.
If you find LaFave, I'm sure you, and almost guarantee, folks, he will probably, I won't guess it, but I'm sure he'll probably end the show with the Murder, She Wrote theme. We'll see. If he can find it, we'll see. But, yeah, I think the promo was fine. You know, Punk is one guy right now in the industry that could probably get away with a worked shoot. He obviously is a hell of a businessman. He's no dummy. And I think this is just I need a few months. This is like Brett in 96.
But the funny thing is he's so hot now. I like your Pillman comparison, actually, because it's actually very... Pillman did that at a time where he knew he was trying to make himself into a free agent to really capitalize on a major deal. Mm-hmm. To me, that's kind of what Punk is doing here, too, knowing, he can get this stuff off his chest, but also really light himself into being a major player. Now, he can go out there and command top dollar for a show like Ring of Honor or whatever else, and then come back, and Vince is going to give him a big money deal because they're going to want him back.
Well, I'll tell you something. I don't know when the September pay-per-view is, but on September 17th, which I believe is a Saturday night, Ring of Honor is doing a show at the Manhattan Center.
Okay.
So,
that would be humongous.
Yeah, that would be gigantic. And, WWE must have something working with Ring of Honor because Ring of Honor does sell WWE stuff on their website. So, and WWE is very, very particular, and they're not stupid. They don't leave anything unturned when it comes to merchandise and rights and that kind of jazz.
Now, how awesome would it be though? And I don't know. I think we're just armchair booking, but how great would it be if Punk did win the title at Money in the Bank and take it, and all of a sudden we start getting highlights of him defending it at New Japan, him defending it at Ring of Honor, around the world, and then they build to a rematch at SummerSlam where Cena wins it back. I mean, that would be a pretty cool month.
I think it would be outstanding. Unfortunately, we're better than they are, and I don't think they'll do that.
And we've talked about this before, though. It's like, what do they have to lose? You know what I mean? They're already number one. Why not do something like that? Why play it so damn safe? Why not say, fuck it, let him take the belt, let him go defend it. Punk's not going to really leave it. You sign him to a deal, but you still let him go work other shows for a month. You know what I mean? Then I think it'd be pretty damn awesome, and it would be a good bump for Ring of Honor, and they could do for Ring of Honor like they did for ECW in the 90s and help, propel them a little bit. You don't have to mess with TNA. TNA's running themselves into the ground anyway, for the most part. So
right.
But yeah, as far as the Brock Lesnar and Heyman stuff goes, I guess there's word out there that they're both looking for kind of a, I don't say personnel. I'm trying to think of the word they're using, but almost just a business
personal services deal.
Yeah, not really. Like neither would come back on any kind of on-screen role. But Lesnar and Heyman would be used. I'm thinking Heyman. He's a pretty smart guy. He knows what's going on. I'm thinking he's doing it to help promote his book that's coming out in September. That's why I think he wants in. Get on the promotion gravy train by them. And, Lesnar, who knows if he's ever going to be able to fight again in the octagon with the diverticulitis.
Diverticulitis.
Yeah. With that issue coming back, and they don't know what his future is going to be. So it is pretty shrewd of him to try and get back in Vince's good graces. Because, he could just make money alone off another DVD, whatever else. Legends contract and stuff like that if he doesn't want to wrestle again. So,
right.
And who knows? I mean, Heyman, it's hard for him to ever stay away completely. I wouldn't be shocked if he's back in some kind of role.
And him and Vince have a very strange relationship.
It's like the one with JR and Vince.
Yeah. It's Stephanie's really the only one that absolutely despises him. I don't think I think Shane likes him, but obviously his opinion doesn't matter because he's not around. So
yeah, Shane's in not in the best graces anyway with Vince. I don't think. I think they're still having some issues. So
yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with Linda, but that's. I mean, we're not going to get into that. That's way out of our realm. But I think as for the promo, getting back to the main focus of our discussion, the promo itself I think worked great, and the only way, obviously, and we won't get into it right now because we'll get into the pay-per-view itself in a little bit. But obviously, there's a stipulation in Punk's match that kind of hinders this from happening, which pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because, and we'll get to that in a minute, obviously Raw was taped. So if you're watching it, well, obviously we have it on right now. I don't have it on right now, but obviously everyone probably knows the results already.
Yeah.
We'll get to the stip in a little bit, but
I know how bad a timing for them, unfortunately, to be a taped show after like such a the hottest Raw they've had probably since if not Nexus last year, maybe one of the Rock ones, I guess the first Rock one when he came back.
Right.
What shit luck for them to be in the can of all weeks, this week, where they really could have capitalized on the Punk stuff. So
now here's an interesting question about the Punk promo. Why did he come out wearing a Steve shirt?
That's playing off their whole, I'm guessing it's playing off the whole, they've been having like a little Twitter feud where they kind of snipe back and forth. They're almost like fake setting up a match. But also, there's one theory I heard out there, and I can't remember who said it. They think that Punk was tipping it, because that was Austin's kind of anti-establishment. He was the anti-establishment hero, basically. And that Punk wore that because, a lot of people think that Punk really, he's one of those guys that is just so in tune with every detail that he doesn't do anything without thinking it through first.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Other than calling fans homos.
I don't know.
He thinks pretty much everything through. So a lot of, there are people out there that think that Punk wore that shirt almost as kind of like previewing what was to come. But
I think that, what's funny about that, and we'll talk about that very briefly, what happened over the weekend in Australia. Was it over the weekend or was it last week?
I think it was over the weekend.
Yeah, this past weekend, Raw was in Australia, or WWE was in Australia touring, and Punk was playing his character as a heel, and a microphone. Fans were sniping at him. Excellent interaction, and Punk apparently yelled at a fan, "You homo." Now, for those that know Punk personally, Punk's a pretty free-thinking liberal. I mean, he posted on his Twitter about when the state of New York has now accepted gay marriage, and he was very, he had other friends post about it. So he obviously is very free-thinking about that kind of thing. So in my opinion, I think he probably wasn't smart to use it, but clearly he was just playing his character up. I don't think he really thinks that way, but he was probably stupid to do it anyway. But that's just the way Punk is. That's almost a Pillman moment right there. The way he
definitely.
You playing the thing again?
It's such a good song.
What?
Oh, yeah.
It's better than the stupid Duggan music anyway, I guess. But the I think Pillman is just a hell of a salesman. Just like Pillman. Pillman just was in bad health, but I think he definitely is going the way of Punk's going the way of Pillman in that aspect. Now,
well, he might be thinking, what, let me take the hit publicity-wise, but still get my name out there. So I wouldn't be shocked a little bit if it wasn't. But Punk actually came out and basically said that he was glad TMZ busted him, and he was stupid for what he did put up a pretty good apology on his Twitter feed. So. Saying that that's why TMZ exists is for idiots like him doing stuff like that.
Yeah, he called himself a douche. I was reading those tweets earlier. So I think he was playing up the character, and I think he just got a little out of hand because WWE has been very sensitive about this, and they work with GLAAD, and they do that whole bullying PSA during the shows and the pay-per-view. So he just put his foot in his mouth. But the question is open-ended as to what happens after, a week from Sunday, in Chicago, his hometown. That crowd's going to be off the charts that night. This match obviously is going to be the main event. So,
well, actually, before we get to that card, I want to ask you something because I tried to kind of bait Eddie Edwards into this question, and he took the easy way out and answered David Richards. But do you think this makes Punk? I hate to say best wrestler in the world, because obviously neither you or I are really too high up on the Japanese scene. So,
right.
Let's say North America. Does this make Punk number one in your eyes now? Like, did he, he was probably already there, but did he secure that spot? When you factor in the entire package, wrestling, promo ability, is he number one right now?
I can't see why he's not. I mean, here's a guy who already everyone knows has exceptional in-ring ability. It's been talked about already. It's well documented. And not just WWE.
He's a guy that's curbed by WWE and still is phenomenal. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. I mean, for anybody, and our good friend and listener Johnny Reckless loaned me his. He got a DVD from Ring of Honor of a series of Punk matches. If anybody watched any of the Punk Joe matches, they're absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they're unbelievable. 90-minute draws. They beat the crap out of each other. So his in-ring ability is without question. But Punk, I think, has always been a very smart salesman, and I think his time in Ring of Honor showed that. You and I saw him live during his reign as Ring of Honor champion.
Well, that was the very end. I mean, that was actually during what was called the Summer of Punk, which is basically the storyline he's doing now is basically aping the one he did that summer.
Yep.
Where he said, "I'm going to leave the promotion with the title. No one's going to beat me. I'm going out on top." And we actually saw him face James Gibson. And Punk won that match, and that's when they were basically teasing that, holy shit, is no one going to beat him? And I think Gibson was actually the one that ended up defeating him.
Gibson did beat him. Yep.
So he's kind of doing the same exact thing, where he announced ahead of time that he was leaving, and he's basically saying, I'm going out with a bang. And the stuff he's tweeting has actually been very similar to the stuff that he was putting up back on his live journal, which was basically the Twitter of 2005. Yes. Every wrestler had one. So he was putting up on there. The same sort of thing. So he's basically working the same basic storyline as that summer that we saw him.
I did think I thought at some point he was going to dye his hair blonde again. That would have been pretty cool. But
well, he's got the mustache now. I don't know if you saw the actual video of the incident from Australia. He's got a
mustache. I was looking for it. TMZ, I think, pulled it because I haven't seen it on. I went to TMZ earlier and I didn't see it. So
it's on the blog of Doom has it. He's got a pretty swank mustache going on.
Excellent. We'll see. I'm curious. I think Vince would be smart to let Ring of Honor have him, and I think they should work a deal out where he goes there, wrestle some matches. I mean, I'd love to see our guy Eddie face him and Davey Richards and all those guys down there. Mm-hmm. Punk would get a good workout. He'd stay loose. He'd stay in shape. The guys there would get unbelievable experience and work in with a bona fide pro. I think you're looking at an awesome tag team combination, even though he was taken out by at the time a baby face, and he was a baby. I don't know what it was back then, or maybe it was like a double heel. I don't know what, but I think an excellent combination of two awesome promo cutters and two awesome heels. If CM Punk and Chris Jericho came back at the same time, that would be ridiculous, and I think it would be red hot for going into the end of 2011 in the fall, starting 2012, and getting that build for WrestleMania 28 going. I think it would be crazy.
Well, there's a lot of ideas out there. Another one is for him to do kind of pissed off anti-establishment guys who've been, fucked around with indie guy kind of disrespected group. With him, Daniel Bryan, bring back Caval, and maybe even like a guy like MVP who feels like he's been screwed. Or, there's a bunch of guys obviously they could go with. They feel like even Zack Ryder. Guys that have been held back. They could say, and it'd be interesting. He's already kind of done the group thing, but. He's in a good spot, and WWE's in a tough spot because, I'm sure they're throwing everything possible at him, but he's probably burnt out on not even just the travel, but probably the politics as well. I can't see him ever going to TNA. I think he's smarter than that. I think he knows that he'll never want to burn his bridge. So I can see him working the indies, working Japan, and just kind of doing his thing. He'll be able to command as much money as he wants, and then he'll be back someday, just like everyone else. Always ends up coming back. So I can't see a guy like him who's in so much of his prime. Jericho, he came back and had the best run of his career, and he was, older than Punk is now, I believe. So, Punk, even if he goes away for 2 years, still can come back and probably be the best guy in the roster. So, we'll see. I mean, obviously, it was nice to have something that happened and reignite the industry. We've only had that a few times over the last few years. The first was obviously that January 4th Nitro. Yep. Basically. January 4th Impact and Raw showdown with Brett returning and Hogan returning. Yep. And then, of course, the Nexus stuff. And then, and even before that, I guess the Trump buying WWE, that kind of was like that, kind of sent shockwaves through the industry kind of night. So that... we don't get those nights often, so it's cool to have another one. And actually, let's read now. I know we usually say feedback for the end, but we got about 7 or 8 comments just on the Punk stuff from the Place to Be podcast page. So I want to read those really fast. So
sure.
Eric Cafero, awesome, what a pro. And this was pretty much as it was going on. So Eric Cafero, awesome, what a promo. Corey Ferreira, great promo, best promo Raw for a long ass time. Jeremy Nichols, loved it. I know it's a work shoot, but damn, it feels great for the fans to feel that way. It almost makes 6 years of shitty Cena promos worth it. Almost. Dennis Nunez. That was pretty awesome. I like the cutting off of his mic, too. Jason Greenhouse. Amazing stuff. It doesn't matter if it was a real shoot or work shoot. It got everyone's attention. I got everyone watching to turn the TV volume up a little more and their asses to the edge of their seats. My favorite line was a shout out to Colt Cabana. Barry Rubin. It's on YouTube. Just watched it. Very well done. And Austin Pfaff. It's like this. WWE has no idea who they're losing, if they really are. So that's another added dimension to this whole thing. Is he leaving? That's another curious point to this whole. They really could help shed some light on where they're going with this. But it's just good to have something back, some mystery surrounding something.
Yeah, and it needs to juice up the summer a little bit because, and this is kind of sad because we've talked about this in the past, how SummerSlam, which used to be a huge show, and we're going to have a special SummerSlam podcast in August to talk about the history of the brand and some of our favorite moments, but SummerSlam is now, it pisses me off because they've turned SummerSlam into just another show. It's not the summer version of WrestleMania anymore. It's now just another show, and that makes me mad.
It's weird because it's kind of like that, but they're still making it a lot of hoopla by having it in LA every year, and doing the whole fan fest like they do for WrestleMania. That's what they've been doing the last few years. So they're kind of like adding the aura of WrestleMania to it, but they don't really seem to put a lot of emphasis on the card or the night itself.
Yeah,
and it is going to feel very flat when if you're coming off this hot Punk Cena feud and then all of a sudden you're doing Punk or Cena Del Rio. You know what I mean? Like it's going to feel very just kind of very blah,
ordinary. Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing. So maybe it's good right now to have something a little sizzling during the summertime to kind of keep us interested in watching. So I'm curious to see where Punk will go with this. I would like to see him obviously come back sooner rather than later, but if he ends up going to that Ring of Honor show in September, that might be a pretty good ticket. So it might be something to look forward to. I have to keep up on our Ring of Honor connections to see what's going on.
We have a couple of Ring of Honor guys lined up, so
yep.
Hopefully that'll be a lot of fun for you guys. So
including one of Punk's very dear friends.
Yes.
So, yes. But we'll let you know who that is. But I think Punk is a brilliant guy. He's a very smart, shrewd opportunist, and maybe learning from the Pillman of 96, 97. He even late 95. He understands how to get people going. He understands how to get people going torque. Turn the right screws and torque off the right people. And that's the one thing about certain guys in that company that make the promo legit too. Obviously, I didn't think he would be allowed to say anything about John Laurinaitis, and he fucking ripped him an asshole. Triple H, I think, like you said, I don't think he cares. I think he giggles and moves on, and I think he knows it's good for the business because Punk is a guy he could rely on over the next 15 years in the promotion or whatever. So I think it made it legit in that aspect. And I think it's something we really can look forward to. It does make that pay-per-view coming up in 2 weeks pretty legit, pretty sizzling. So unfortunately, I will not be able to watch it, but I'm hoping someone will be able to tape it for me, or maybe I'll buy the replay when I come back. But I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of it over the next couple weeks. So.
Well, that didn't surprise me a bit because Lou Albano is a big, fat, sloppy pig.
We'll use that as our transition.
Yeah, so that always fires up my summers.
All right, so let's. The next topic that our Place to Be Nation wanted us to talk about is the Mark Henry push that is currently going on SmackDown. He's been. I feel like every time he's getting a good push, everyone's like, "Oh, this is the best he's been. This is the best he's been used." But I actually think he's been used pretty well multiple times over the last 6 years. Starting with that kind of brief heel run he had in 2004 before he got hurt. His little run in 2006 was pretty good. Then, of course, I really liked his run as ECW champion. I thought he had a nice run there with that belt when he had the big silver one. And then he had the kind of this tepid face run where he was pretty over in the beginning and then this kind of happy smiling Mark. But ever since he turned heel on that draft show, he's really been kicking it up a notch. And I love the way they're using him. They have him come out, work quick matches, get some squash wins, and just be a real jerk on SmackDown. And he's kind of like in the background of this Christian Orton feud. Just kind of, wiping Orton out whenever he can. And this past week on SmackDown, he got pissed off and went over and assaulted the sound guy for interrupting his match with some music. So he went and threw him through a table and smashed up all the sound equipment. So then there's no music after he did that. So it was kind of a cool touch. And they're really letting him run rampant over on SmackDown. And they're doing a nice job protecting him as well. So it's good to see them building a monster heel. And I'm enjoying it. You know how I feel about Evil Hosses, so to see him doing this well in that role is good.
Well, I've softened on my dislike of Mark Henry over the last few years as well. We all know that he was a complete waste of space for most of the first 6 years of his contract, dating back to 1996. Every time he'd get a little decent thing, he'd get hurt, and then he'd pull something or tear something or break something. I kind of liked him in The Nation. I kind of liked his character in 99, 2000. He was a good, funny, sexual chocolate thing going on, and then he'd get hurt again, and then he was in that almost like that Black Power faction with Teddy Long and what's his name?
Rodney Mack.
Rodney Mack, and then he got hurt there. And then when he came back from that injury and came back, what was it, like late 05?
Yeah, that was when he hurt Batista.
He hurt Batista.
And then he had that feud with Taker, and then he beat Ray. He was one of the guys that beat Ray when Ray was champion.
Yeah.
But then I think he got hurt again, and that's when he came back after that in ECW. And he was part of that cool like Monsters Ball match they had. Remember, it was him, Kane, Big Daddy V, and someone. It was like they had a Halloween night ECW, and they had like this really cool Monsters Brawl.
Yes,
that was kind of.
I do remember that.
So
I do remember that.
Yeah, that was kind of his run then. But
yeah, and he and ever since then they've really used him effectively. And SmackDown definitely, again, we always talk about how SmackDown sometimes gets neglected, but in reality, it's always good to have that show be able to be a little more free flowing and give people the ability to grow. And
it's become a feeder show. I mean, everyone bitches about not having a developmental system, but honestly, that's what basically SmackDown's become. They build these guys up. They let them develop the characters every week. It's not as frantic or frenetic as the pace of Raw. And these guys get time to tell their stories and have interesting angles and let things simmer and grow. And then when they're ready, they move them over to Raw. I mean, it happened with Del Rio, and I think it's probably going to happen with Cody Rhodes next year. I'm glad they let him have another year. Because this whole thing with him and DiBiase kind of reuniting, and DiBiase's like his flunky, has been pretty good stuff. And, even Great Khali's in a pretty good angle right now with Jinder Mahal and all that stuff. And, they're doing a nice job just building guys and using them. You would think Heyman's actually booking that show the way they're, doing the whole, like, guys play to the strengths and other guys, they hide their weaknesses. So
right.
The Christian Orton feud still got raging on, and they've developed Christian slowly into being, a full-out heel. And I enjoy watching that. I actually kind of look forward to Friday nights. I can't say I sit and watch it live from 8 to 10, but I'll start watching it at night and watch it throughout the weekend, usually on DVR. So, sometimes I look forward to that more than Raw, to be honest. I find it to be a little more, I just like the pace and the storylines a little bit better, the depth that they put into it.
Yeah, and I like the announcing a lot better too. I like Booker. I think he's really started to get comfortable in that role now. I hate to say it, but you're kind of torn because the heel Michael Cole kind of finally ran its course and starting to get very, very stretched out and played out. Now I feel like I'm watching like Raw the last 3 years again. It's like you don't know what you want. That's not fair. It's not fair to want something over something else. But I think it's because there are no legitimate heel color commentators now on either show.
Well, Cole still kind of does it. He's not.
He
as
does it mostly
obnoxious
for Miz,
about it, but
yeah.
He's basically still kind of the heel. King still annoys the hell out of me, and I don't know. We've talked about the commentary situation on our last headlines about if Mick Foley were to come back and be in that role. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where they head with it. But kind of speaking of guys that they've been really booking well, I have to say Alex Riley's another one because that guy is this monster over still.
Yes.
He got the win, like we had talked about leading into the last pay-per-view. He needed the win. He got it, and he actually beat Miz again tonight. But Miz just laid him out after the match to kind of set up. Obviously, they're both going to be in the Money in the Bank match show. But it's pretty amazing how they've created Alex Riley, a guy who looks probably lost in the shuffle. Basically when he was going to be sent down to Deep South like 3 months ago or 2 months ago, they brought it back, and now he's red hot. Who would have thought that he'd be this over of a face out of nowhere? It's pretty crazy.
Well, you have to give all the credit in the world to Miz because Miz's character is such a bastard that anybody who was able to take the ball and run with it was going to get a good handoff, and Riley certainly has taken the ball and run with it. So a lot of credit has to go to Miz for really helping create the buzz for Riley.
I think, too, that storyline is one that's kind of does work still nowadays. It's basically the old DiBiase Virgil storyline. It worked with Orton and DiBiase, and it worked again with Punk and Riley, that having that flunky who gets, talked down to and abused and finally snaps and beats the shit out of, his boss. That's just been an angle. It's always worked well. So when
H.
done
Batista.
right. Yeah, exactly. It really has, and it's one that maybe they don't use enough or do well enough. Because it can be very effective.
Yes, and so I think Riley really now is he going to win the money? I mean, we'll make our picks in a minute. Do I think he's ready to win that match? No. There's guys obviously ahead of him on the list for something that big, but I think he'll put on a good show and obviously he'll stay with the company and continue to have a good year. But yeah, I give all the credit in the world to Miz for that because he helped maybe intentionally or unintentionally made Riley a star.
Yeah, and he's got an outside shot to win that match. I'd put him ahead of probably 5 other people in it. So he's definitely. I think Riley's not that far out from winning that match. I don't think, as much as it may seem. But let's more on it. We might as well switch gears. I know we're about a week early, but we got some other stuff planned, and I didn't know if we'd get to a full preview. And pretty much the major matches are announced. So let's go ahead and preview the Money in the Bank pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I love that they're reusing the old Trump song.
Yes.
I've seen people confuse it and say that, they're using the Shane theme, but no, this is not the Shane theme. This is the Trump theme. Actually, it might have been the $1 million giveaway theme, too, I think.
I believe it was, yes. I still have my T-shirt that my friend that works in radio gave to me, the USA. He got it from his WWE account guy. It's pretty funny. I had something to say about Money in the Bank, and I totally forgot. But maybe I'll remember it. Obviously, Money in the Bank. What I was about to say was if there's any matches that are added between now and whenever, then we'll just mention it on next week's headline show or when we have a minute, whichever, however our podcast topics go next week. We'll mention.
I mean,
after the fact,
I think you can pretty much surmise that we're going to get Orton, Christian again. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe Mark Henry will be mixed in there. Maybe it'll be a 3-way. But I think you can pretty much, it looks like it's headed that way. So.
Right.
But, of course, the big match is John Cena versus CM Punk. Do you want to talk about that first, or do you want to start bottom up? I guess we'll start bottom up.
Yeah, I'll start bottom up. He's just silk stockings going in the background. I can't see Cena in an episode of Silk Stockings. I don't know. I can see Orton in an episode of Silk Stockings.
I could see, Orton. I could definitely see him being one of the Predators on that show that they used to have. So.
But
that never forget that show. All right, we'll start at the bottom with the Divas. There's been 4 matches announced. We'll run with a potential Orton Christian thing as well. But
okay.
Divas title: Brie Bella versus Kelly. I'm guessing Kelly retains here. It seems like she won just because she won the fan vote, so they had her win the title. But I think they'll keep it on her probably and do whatever else they want to do for a feud. I don't know. Women's division with the loss of Kong is kind of petered out again now. I don't really see the need to put her right back on Brie Bella. So
no, I don't either. And I think Kelly's earned the chance. She's been here since 2006.
Amazing. She's already been around 5 years.
She's been 5 years. She was one of the first people on the new ECW, and
basically
she was
5 years a couple weeks ago, right? Because that was end of June that show debuted, or mid June.
Yeah, and that was when she was that
exhibitionist.
The exhibitionist, and she was I remember saying this to you and to our friends. She was terrible at dancing. She really had no idea what the hell she was doing.
Well, they used to have to put other divas out there with her to dance.
Yeah. The most memorable one I remember was Candice.
Yeah, Candice. They had Tori dance with her. What's her name? Layla. They had a bunch of different divas dance with her to.
It was almost like
make those segments, a little bit better. But then, of course, then she had the whole thing with Mike Knox and Balls Mahoney and that stuff. So
yeah, no, I was. She's definitely earned the chance to hold the title, so I think she's going to win. The Bellas don't need anything; they're just there. I don't even know why they're. I still can't stand either of them, and I don't know why they're still with the company. But I think
they're still giving. Was it Jeremiah? Who are they giving the tips to? Was it?
Jeremiah. No.
AJ.
No. Luke.
No, it wasn't Luke.
Wasn't Luke? Are you sure?
No, I think it was Jeremiah they were giving the tips to, because he was saying about how he wasn't in the business, and they were telling him what it's like to get in. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was him. Yeah. Actually, they had we were going back and forth a little bit with some of the Nation on Facebook. Saturday on Universal HD channel, they actually leading up, like we've talked about this before, on Saturday nights they re-air Raw and SmackDown in a loop. Mm-hmm. Leading up to it all day, they re-aired the whole season of Tough Enough.
Oh, there you go.
So it was on. I watched a few of the episodes throughout the day. So
that's tremendous.
I didn't get to see the midgets playing some fucking basketball though.
That's tremendous. Oh God, Steve, he's awesome. But yeah, Kelly will retain. I think she'll hold the belt for a while if anybody still cares at this point. But
okay, let's talk about the SmackDown Money, and of course, Money in the Bank. To me, really is becoming up there as one of the maybe top 4 pay-per-views of the year to look forward to. Last year was really, really good show.
Yes.
And this year, obviously, behind the Rumble and WrestleMania, it may be the most anticipated show.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to be guaranteed 2 very good matches with the Money in the Bank. And now when you add in the whole Punk drama, this really is shaping up to be a pretty exciting show. So, all right, SmackDown is a very interesting mix. And actually, it's kind of cool. It's like the Money in the Bank of the Misfit Mid-Carders. You have Daniel Bryan, Sin Cara, Kane, Wade Barrett, Sheamus, Cody Rhodes, Heath Slater, and Justin Gabriel. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential for some friggin' sweet, aerial offense in this between Bryan, Sin Cara, Cody, and Justin Gabriel. So, a lot of potential for some good high spots. You got Kane in there as always to take the big bumps. Wade Barrett as well. So you should get some good house brawling with the ladder between them. And, Cody and Sheamus always worked very hard. So to me, this is probably Sheamus's match to lose. I'm guessing he's the one pegged to win this. Cody, I'd maybe give the potential second shot to. And of course, we saw Kane do his thing last year at the show. I don't think he'll win this one. So I'm going to go Sheamus probably, but I wouldn't be shocked if Cody wins.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder because I have a heart pick and a head pick. My head, as an analyst, tells me that I actually like Wade Barrett to win this match.
Heart and head? Do I need to break out LL again?
No. Right. Oh my God. My head tells me all right, let me rephrase it. The wrestling analyst in me.
Your head tells you about that girl that's with that guy.
That guy and Hawk and his paint. No. I'm so glad. You know what? I'd rather be construed as this and have to listen to that goddamn Duggan song anymore. So,
it sounds like that song from Wrestling with Shadows. Where they play that Brett's swimming in his pool or whatever.
Oh God! All right, the wrestling analyst in me tells me that Wade Barrett's going to win this match. Oh boy! I got to tell you something though. At the end of the show, when we get to feedback, I got to let you know about one of our loyal Place to Be podcast listeners starting a campaign with me. I almost feel like we're the right to censor, but anyway,
right to idiocy.
Right to yeah. Only you and Rotella can jump on that bandwagon. But anyway, the wrestling analyst in me thinks Wade Barrett's going to win this match. Sheamus doesn't need this. Sheamus is already at that level where he could find other ways to get title shots. I don't think he needs this. Was that Pacific Blue?
No, it's still stalking.
Still stalking.
That's the best part, though. It's quite.
You better be careful. I don't know if USA is going to want royalties for all these clips.
We're not involved in any crappy USA shows.
Yeah. Walker, Texas Ranger.
All right, go ahead. You can finish unabated now.
Thank you. The wrestling analyst in me thinks that Wade Barrett's going to win this. I think that's the reason he dropped the IC title to Ezekiel Jackson. I think Sheamus doesn't need this. I think Sheamus will look good here, but I think he's going to get a title shot. He can get title shots other ways. He's already at that level where he doesn't need this. I like Wade Barrett to win this. The wrestling fan in me wants to see Cody Rhodes win. I think he's earned it. I think he's earned it more than anybody else in this match, to be honest with you.
How about the super smart in you would be, or in me, would say Daniel Bryan wins this, and that helps propel the bitter, unused CM Punk stable with them both holding both championships. It'll never ever happen, but
no.
I'm just glad to see Daniel Bryan actually in the friggin' match. So
yeah, I do too, and I'd like to see Daniel Bryan take this briefcase, crush Cena in the face with it, and Punk wins the title, and the place goes friggin' insane. You have this start of a shoot faction, and Nigel McGuinness is floating out there now.
Actually, those are the other two guys I've heard, come up. Him and Claudio Castagnoli, if they were signed to hook up almost in this little ROH faction.
Oh, it'd be tremendous. A bunch of shooters.
Punk and Daniel Bryan. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. They have a lot of potential at their fingertips, whether they use it or not.
And on a side note, just very quickly, you have this in my head. I know we're talking about this with Punk, but before we finish the pick, just to fathom this, though. If Vince has looked beyond the whole cosmetic aspect of it and brought in Awesome Kong or I already forgot what name they gave her.
Karma?
Karma, thank you. If they already brought her in, and who's obviously not the diva look that Vince likes, I can't see why they would not, once his contract's up, bring in Samoa Joe, and then you have this real setup of just absolute murderers. I think it'd be tremendous. But anyway, the wrestling analyst in me thinks Wade Barrett's going to win this match, but my heart would like to see Cody Rhodes because I think Cody's deserved it. I think he deserves it. No doubt about it. But I have a feeling Wade Barrett's going to win. I think that's why he lost. I think that's why he dropped the IC title to Ezekiel Jackson. I think he's earned that next step as well. But he needs the Money in the Bank, I think, to kind of forward himself a little bit, whereas I don't think Sheamus does. So I like Sheamus. I like Cody Rhodes. My heart, as a fan, would like to see Cody Rhodes win. But the analyst in me thinks that Wade Barrett.
Cody's got that feud going with Daniel Bryan, so I don't know if they're going to feel like he's really kind of prepared, for that right now, because I think they still have him kind of in the mid-card mix. So it'll be interesting, but I like the mix of that match. So I like how it's kind of loaded with, guys ready to break through but not quite there. So
right.
Similar, of course, in the Raw one as well. You got a couple of seen as mocking the Vince McMahon strut right now. It's kind of funny. You kind of have a good mix of guys, a couple of established players with some other guys ready to break through. And, of course, that is comprised of Rey Mysterio, Kofi Kingston, Jack Swagger, Evan Bourne, Alberto Del Rio, R-Truth, A-Rai, and The Miz. I'm guessing Del Rio wins this to set up his match at SummerSlam, I'm guessing. Miz, outside chance. A-Rai, outside chance. The rest of the guys, I can't see Rey winning. Kofi and Swagger and Bourne have no chance, obviously. And I think R-Truth is kind of going to be out of the title picture for a while. He'll be the guy that keeps getting thrown in any kind of multi-man match.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of like, remember in 2000 when like Kane would be like the multi-man title match guy? He
Yes.
didn't actually get his own title matches, but he was big enough to be thrown in those matches. That's where I see R-Truth being.
Yeah.
Good enough to be in the mix, but never like another. He'll never get another legit one-on-one title shot, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
If I had to pick, I'm going to take Del Rio.
Well, I'm actually going to take Del Rio as well, and when we get to our next... I won't go further than that. I'll explain more at the end of the show, but I like Del Rio too. But if I had a second pick, it's tough because I don't think any of these other guys... I don't want to say The Miz doesn't deserve it, but I don't think anybody wants to see him with it again. He's at that point now where he's another one who doesn't need it, and he can get title shots other ways. He's like Sheamus.
No, I agree.
Who'd my second pick be? Why not Evan Bourne?
Yeah.
Why not Evan Bourne? He's kind of earned it. Why not?
It'd be cool. It'd be a nice shock. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, but I think this is Del Rio's match to lose.
Yeah.
This one's not as wide open as the SmackDown.
Although what,
I
I feel like we've been saying that all year, and I mean, outside of him winning the Rumble, I feel like we keep saying it's Del Rio's match to lose, and then he loses them all. So
well, he's been a victim. I hate to use the legendary late great Randy Savage. He seems to always be a victim of circumstance. So
here's a funny Savage story actually. While we're on it, I went over to my aunt's pool today, a little impromptu party, and I wore my my Macho Man shirt from our beer pong winning championship. But I think it's actually the first time I really worn it out to something like that. So my cousin's husband, Ryan, his daughter from a previous relationship was up from Baltimore. She's 10.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, Macho Man died. I'm like, oh, yeah, were you sad? She's like, yeah, he was awesome. And it's like a 10-year-old girl. I'm like, how the hell do you know?
I actually have worn my Hulkamania shirt since. I'll have to pull it out now for.
I'm like, how do you know about Macho Man and how great he was? I'm like, it's pretty awesome that that it was just that big of a story again. And then it almost struck up a little conversation where people started talking about how he passed away and what a shock it was. And it's just amazing, really, how this guy continues to stretch, hit the news. And even when they had the autopsy, he was all over the ESPN bottom line and front page again. When they revealed he had the heart attack, obviously, before he crashed into the tree. So.
Yes, yeah. He actually saved his wife's life because his foot leaned on the pedal, and she kind of actually it was a combination of him and her. She kind of helped turn the wheel.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have gone right into traffic, and she'd have been probably incinerated. So the fact that he blew through the other lane so fast that another car didn't get a chance to hit them. Apparently they T-boned the tree, but she was fine. So
yeah, they said even he was fine. They said he only had some scrapes and scratches.
Yeah.
So it was a heart attack that did him in.
It's terrible try. It kind of depresses me now. But anyway, to quote him from the '89 Rumble, Del Rio has been a victim of circumstance, and this time I think there's nothing getting in the way. Even the greatness of Punk. Well, in fact, it won't get in his way. It'll help him, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that a little bit later, but I think this is clearly there's nobody else here that really is at that level where they need to carry the Money in the Bank. And I agree with you about R-Truth. I like R-Truth a lot, but he's not going to get it. And Swagger, no. Riley, not ready yet. Miz, like Sheamus, can get the title match in other ways. He doesn't need this again. Kofi is not ready yet. Ray's not going to get it. So it really is Del Rio's match to win. There's really nobody else logistically that they could really give it to. So I agree with you. I like Del Rio.
And of course, the main event, CM Punk, John Cena. If Punk wins and takes the title out of WWE, Cena's fired. If Cena wins, obviously nothing happens. The Cena firing angle is what we were referring to earlier when we said a stupid stip added on to really make this match seem even more obvious.
Yeah.
Cena's already been fired once this year. I don't think they're going to do that angle again. Unless this is their subtle way of making him into an anti-authority heel guy. Kind of what they're doing tonight. He's, yelling at Vince about the whole freedom of speech thing. And he actually brought up the Daniel Bryan firing last year, saying that, he doesn't like stuff like that and whatever. He's laying into Vince about it. So, and he's actually, in a way defending Punk. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were maybe going to do something crazy like that. But, with that step added in, I'm going to pick Cena, even though I think it's the most boring way they can go. Of course, I think they've said, did they say if Punk, I don't have the volume up now. There's two ways I've heard it. I've heard if it's either if Punk wins, Cena's fired, or if Punk leaves as champion, Cena's fired. So, of course, there's the thought out there that Punk will win, and then someone will cash in Money in the Bank and defeat him on his way out, so Cena won't be fired because Punk didn't leave with the title. I think that's more of what the stip is than actually him winning.
Right. I don't see a heel coming in and taking the belt from Punk. What I see happening is I see Cena winning a very tough, crazy match, and I see Punk getting so pissed off he absolutely beats the living snot out of Cena. Del Rio cashes Money in the Bank. Punk helps him, and Del Rio cashes in at the end of the night and becomes a WWE champion. That's what I think.
All right, I'm gonna go with the same idea as you are, but I'm gonna say he pins Punk. I think Punk wins, and then Del Rio comes out and takes the title back, and kind of becomes Vince's. If Vince is gonna stick around, kind of his almost like his Rock from '98. You know what I mean? He'll be like his little handpicked guy saying, you kept my title here, Cena. You couldn't get it done, and that kind of puts Cena in the Austin role to try and get some more face pops behind him, and that'll be the feud leading into SummerSlam. Del Rio is the guy who saved the WWE title for Vince against Cena, trying to get it back. So. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can see that too. I just can't see the crowd getting deflated like that. But I'm gonna we trust Vince to do anything nice to anybody in to the local fans. He's never kissed any of their butts anyway. So I think that they'll just make it easy and just have Cena. I think it'll go along the same lines, but I think Punk will be taken out of the equation, and I think Cena will win close. And or win by DQ or something weird could happen. It could end up being some kind of cheapy finish. But regardless of how the match finishes, I think Del Rio cashes in, and Del Rio will be champion at the end of the night.
Okay, so there you have it. There's our Money in the Bank picks. Leave yours on the Facebook page. Let us know what you think, and if we do end up getting to do another headlines and there's more matches, if not, we'll just kind of post. We'll have the discussion more on the Facebook page, most likely. To see where things go for the pay-per-view. But, if you're interested, if you have a way of... I'm never going to advocate actually paying for these shows because I don't think any show is really worth the $50 price tag, honestly. This is coming from a pretty big loyalist of the promotion, but I just cannot see ever paying full price on your own for one of these shows, unless you're getting reimbursed as a cash write-off or something for a job.
Yeah.
I just don't see how, especially, even TNA too, but with so many other alternatives out there, I'm not just like Extreme. I'm saying even if you have a local establishment in your area like I do, and, luckily for you, you have someone who is fine buying them every month, so you go watch them. But,
right.
Shows like this, as good as this is maybe one I'd maybe say, okay, I could see at least paying half for. But anyway, I would suggest finding a way to watch it because I think it'll be good.
Yes, I agree.
All right, so let's move on quickly. We got one more kind of wrestling-related topic to talk about that our nation wants to talk about, and that is, of course, the ongoing Linda Hulk Hogan stuff. The latest news here is that Linda's coming out and basically speaking out, kind of finally telling her side of the story and saying she was tired of being portrayed as the bad guy and that she felt she was being abused. She was doing everything to keep their family together, and she said that Hogan beat her back in the day, and he was a drug addict, basically. All the same shit Warrior's saying, kind of. So,
yeah.
This is kind of just a weird triangle going on right now with these three. I don't know who to believe. I think Hogan and Linda are both full of shit. So, I will say it affected my viewing this week. They had a Hogan Knows Best marathon on like country music television. I was trying to watch a little bit of it. It's just not the same knowing what's happened since.
Yeah, I agree.
Hogan says that Linda's abuse claims are bullshit and they're lies. But basically, he's been denying everything from the start. He told Bubba the Love Sponge that just take her and put her in the same category with Iron Sheik and Ultimate Warrior. They all belong together. So, it really just, we talked about this before. To me, guys like Warrior and, even idiots like the Iron Sheik, these guys don't really ever lie because they don't really have any need to. So you just need to see where they're maybe going one step further than the truth to embellish stuff. But usually what they say, guys like that, like even we said like Jose Canseco, guys like that are usually right because they don't have anything to lose. A guy like Hogan still has a lot to lose. I almost see him as being like a Roger Clemens. Clemens denied all the steroid stuff because he had a lot to lose, whereas a guy like Canseco, he's got nothing to lose. So why not go out there and just say whatever? He's not going to the Hall of Fame. He's not respected anyway. Why not go say the truth? And to me, that almost seems like a guy like Warrior is more likely to do that. Come out and say, hey, whatever. Everyone hates me anyway. I'm going to come out and speak the truth. But a guy like Hogan's got much more of a reputation and a position, where he's at with TNA and Spike TV to uphold. To where obviously you'd have to deny. Obviously, he's not going to admit to beating his wife, but that's just kind of my take on it. To me, I always kind of side with the crazy guys because they're usually the ones that are right.
Yeah. Although if you read, it was almost like a preemptive strike because again, I read Hogan's book, not that crappy Mark one that he wrote that WWF released in 2002. The actual book, My Life Outside the Ring, and he wrote in there that Linda was a crackpot and an alcoholic. So I don't know if he knew this was coming and he was firing preemptive salvos. I don't believe either of them, to be honest with you.
No, I'm sure they're both to some extent embellishing things.
I can't see him beating her. I think that either Nick or Brooke would have said something at this point, or something would have come out. We already know he's a drug addict. So he wrote in his book, he said it in his book that him and Linda did coke in the hotel rooms during the Federation years, in the 80s. He admitted it. So everyone's saying that he did drugs. I know that already. If you read the book, you know that already. He did coke. He admitted it. Well, we all know he did steroids too. So
it's interesting too that the kids generally have sided with him through everything, and not Linda. She's kind of been on her own. But I mean, it doesn't mean necessarily too much. But
right.
I don't know. It's just too bad to see a guy like Hogan, and it was always kind of Flair as the poster boy for this. The guy who's kind of pissing away his legacy week after week. Hogan's not doing much better, honestly, at this point. And it makes you kind of appreciate a guy like Brett even more. That he's still been around and had his share of issues, but he seemed to just kind of age a little bit more gracefully at this point.
Yes.
Then Flair and Hogan's still out there, desperate for change. Even now, I threw on Impact while we're talking from last week, and it's like he's still fucking doing stuff with Sting. And it's like this guy's just coming off major back surgery and all this other shit, and like he's still out there, taking bumps and being in these angles, and it's like, I don't know.
No, it's there's no need for it now. Well, because he needs to do this now because he needs to make his money because he didn't know how to book or run the company, so he might as well. There's only one way he can make the good on the investment that Dixie Carter made, which is wrestling, because he can't do anything else.
And actually, Bubba Ray has a pretty awesome shirt on. He's got like the Obama, the Obama picture that's a change, and it's got like the cartoon, like, or color drawing.
Yeah, the colored one. Yep.
He's got a Hogan one that's red and yellow, and this is change because he's part of Immortal. It's pretty cool shirt. But
yes, I remember those. Yeah, I remember those shirts. I remember seeing those when they first put them out.
So I don't know. He's actually been very good lately, Bubba Ray, or Bully Ray, I should say. He's been one of the best performers on that show, talking wise, and even in the ring, he's been pretty good.
Well, he's pretty much, from what I've been reading, he pretty much is acting the way he normally does, which is an asshole. So
yeah, pretty much
kind of works that way. But I don't know what's going to come from this. But again, I read Hogan's book, and he pretty much wrote in it that he was totally in love with Linda. And he was the one that acted like the victim. So I don't know if he's embellishing it, if it's the truth.
Well, Linda also came out and said that she thinks he was having an affair with, on her. She could tell by the way he was acting. And I mean, again, who knows?
Oh, well, look, he admitted that he had a dalliance with Brooks' hairdresser or manager or something. I don't know. This was while they were separated. He was still living in Tampa. She had already moved out to California. And apparently Brooke was furious, and they had their issues, but then they've resolved them since, according to the book. But I mean, when it comes to affairs, I mean, come on, how many wrestlers in those years anyway, at least the Federation years, 85 through the early 90s, weren't cheating on their wives? I'm sure they all had gym rats at every town. So I believe.
Did you say Rugrats?
No, I meant to say gym rats.
Tommy Pickles is in every town banging color.
I meant to say gym rats. I said Rugrats by accident. You gonna find that theme next to yeah. I mean, they have gym rats in every town and groupies. So I mean that. Cheating on her cheating on him doesn't surprise me at all, because I think they all cheated on their wives during the territory grunt years of the 70s and 80s. So that. Well,
you listen here, brother. When I was out back banging Angelica from the Rugrats back in 1987.
Oh God, Tommy Pickles. But who knows what's going to come of it? It's very unfortunate that this perfect family that had a great show just fell apart. It's unfortunate. It's just another sad chapter of what has become the last 6 years of Hulk Hogan's life.
Ever since that I guess I don't know, the Shawn feud because even the Orton feud was kind of a mess. So I'd say the Shawn feud was pretty much his
swan
peak.
song.
Yeah. And since then it's all been a mess. But
the Orton feud would have been great if they allowed Brooke to be in it. You and I had mentioned that you had talked about it, and I'd said it to friends that if they had let Brooke in it and Orton was like kind of the carousing slime ball with Brooke, that it would have made the feud. But instead, Hogan wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, Hogan vetoed it. And then they had the whole weird thing where they were going to work in Harry Smith, and he was in the Hogan Knows Best episode trying to date Brooke and all that stuff. And this kind of went nowhere as well.
Yeah, so the whole thing, Hogan botched that entire thing. So that was really started his downfall. And he's pretty much stealing money from Dixie Carter. So...
Now speaking of TNA briefly, I don't know if you're aware. I don't know if you've seen it all. They're doing this Bound for Glory Championship Challenge thing. Tournament.
Yeah, I've heard something about this points system, or I haven't totally seen the what the schematics are of it.
It's actually really cool. It's a giant round robin where there's like 8 guys involved, and they all face each other at different shows, and they have tournament matches at house shows. And what they're showing right now is they show highlights of them, and they have the little promos and the guys in the back talking about their win. So it's actually making the house shows seem important. And they show a leaderboard every week. If you get a pinfall, you get 7 points. If you get a submission, you get 10. Count out DQ. And the leader right now is Crimson with 17 points. Then Gunner, Matt Morgan, AJ Styles, James Storm have 14. RVD, Scott Steiner, Bully Ray have 7. And then I think there's actually 16 guys in this. The rest have 0 right now. So it's kind of cool because there's a match on this show with Samoa Joe's in it, and he's going for the submission because he needs to get points, so he needs 10 points. So it's actually been really cool the way they've been doing it, and if they keep doing it and they stick to it, I think it could kind of maybe be something that draws a lot of people in to have that legitimate kind of sports feel behind it. So I've always been a mark for those kind of rankings and tournaments and stuff. So
yeah, me too.
I like that they're doing that. But all right, let's quickly switch off wrestling. I think we've kind of exhausted all those topics.
Yeah. Yes, we have.
And I did want to talk about the All-Star Game. We had a few comments on our Facebook page. One of our friends who's a big Indians fan. I'm drawing a blank on exactly which one it is. Hold on one second. It is Matt Farrell, of course. A big Indians fan and very upset that Asdrubal Cabrera got robbed of starting the All-Star team. Now, I want to qualify this by saying right off the bat, I find it hard to really get too upset over this stuff because I know it's basically just a popularity contest. I usually get more angry at the manager snubs than I do the fan voting. I know the fans are basically going to vote for their own guys. That's why I usually don't even bother voting. But I usually get more upset over who gets left off by the players and manager. That usually bothers me a little bit more. So I'm going to run through the roster quick. We'll start the AL and we'll kind of talk.
Yeah, why don't you? Yeah, you do the since we're the fans of the respective. Why don't you do the American League roster and I'll do the National League roster.
All right, starting catcher. Do you want to talk about each guy as we go through it?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So starting catcher, Alex.
Quick one-line shot.
Yeah, all right. Starting catcher is Alex Avila of Detroit. I think he was pretty worthy. Catching's kind of weak right now in the American League. He's got the best. I'd say he's probably got the best overall numbers. 298, 10, and 46 are his basic counting stats. And the Detroit pitching staff's pretty good, and they're having a good year. So I'm cool with that.
Yeah, he has had a good year. There has been a lot of hot catchers. Obviously, the catcher slot was kind of wide open this year with Joe Mauer hurt most of it. So,
with him
kudos
hurt
to,
and Posada moving out of catcher, those have kind of been the two major guys,
right.
For the last 60 years or so. So with them both kind of out of the picture now, it's and of course when you don't have Terry Francona putting in Jason Varitek batting 206, or whatever the hell he was that year.
That's right.
And speaking of the Red Sox, the first baseman Adrian Gonzalez, you can't really argue at all. I guess the only guy you could maybe say is Miguel Cabrera. Kind of got robbed, but Adrian Gonzalez having a monster year, as we predicted here on the show. Batting 348, 1675, and that 348 is actually down. He's been in a slump. He was up over 350 for a while, so obviously no arguments there. Same with second base. I don't think you can argue much with Cano. Voted in by the fans, 294, 1454. Dustin Pedroia is kind of having a down year. There's someone else I wanted to mention. I'm drawing a blank now on the other guy.
For
second base.
Is he in the reserves? Let me see.
No, he's not. I can't think of him. There's another guy that I was thinking had a decent argument, but I think Cano. I can't find much wrong with going with Cano there.
No, he's having a good year.
Of course, A-Rod voted in at third base. You can say he was voted in on name, but he's actually having a under the radar good year. He's having a good enough year for an All-Star game. He's not having an A-Rod year, but he's batting just under 300, 13 home runs, 52 RBIs, and he's actually been playing tremendous defense this year. As someone who watches every game, this may be his best year defensively in a long time. So I'm cool with that there. Of course, the biggest argument that many people have is Jeter going in a shortstop. Not only was he injured, he also was having a pretty bad first half. So I'm definitely with people. As big of a Yankee fan as I am, I can't really argue that he belongs there over Asdrubal Cabrera, who did make it in as a reserve, but his numbers all around are just much better, and he's been playing better defense. So,
right.
What's your take on the Jeter thing?
I agree. I mean, I remember there were years that Cal Ripken didn't deserve it. There was the one year that I think, the one year that I remember off the top of my head, I think it was like 91 or 90. It might have been 92, where not Roberto Alomar, the other one, Sandy Alomar Jr., who was catching for Cleveland, got the starting catcher nod. He was batting like 202 with like a homer and 10 RBIs. His numbers were ludicrous in terms of not even belonging there. It's a fan vote. The fan con, no one ever I mean, it's unfortunate that you're in a catch-22 because, you gotta, the fans are going to pick who they want. And Jeet is one of the hotter, more popular guys in the league. So, the pick is it legit? Absolutely not. Not this year.
I think they should make it more. I think they should revamp things. Although it's tough now because, like anything else, then you're going to affect all the ones that came before it. But it's too bad they couldn't come up with more of a formula to say, all right, the fan voting is 40% or whatever. You know what I mean? Or even the fan voting gets the guys on the team, but doesn't necessarily make them the starter. You know what I mean?
The problem is the All-Star ballots are printed in like the first week of April.
Yeah,
so
that's also a problem. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, if you had an up to date ballot, then you would adjust it and wouldn't even put Jeter on it at all. Right. So, that's the unfortunate thing. But
right. Outfield, obviously, no complaints. Jose Bautista having a monster year, Curtis Granderson having a great year, and Josh Hamilton having a very good year. And he missed a lot of time, but he's back now and still playing well. So hard to really argue with those three outfield spots, and really can't argue with David Ortiz at DH either. I guess he found his milkshakes again, or whatever other nonsense he's still searching for, the mystery steroid fail test. But of course, we never hear about that. We hear about everyone else, but we don't hear about that.
Yeah. And incidentally, congratulations. I mean, you got to give Jose Bautista a lot of credit. I mean, the most votes ever cast for a guy in the history of the fan vote. I mean, 7.4 million votes for him.
Yeah.
I just hope it doesn't come out that he was on steroids because he seems to be hitting home runs just out of nowhere, which is...
he's hitting 329. I don't know. I honestly, I'm a believer in the whole change swing thing. I think we see it with Granderson, and I think we see it with him, that you can just, if guys have the talent, you just got to get the mechanics down. And
oh, yeah, exactly.
I think you're going to be pretty arrogant and pretty stupid to be juicing at this point. So to me, until he's proven guilty, I just think he's just a late bloomer, honestly. I don't think he's a guy you look at him like a McGuire or a Sosa. And those guys, you look back and you can see how fucking juiced they were. And, Bonds and everything else. So, to me, in my eyes, I think he's clean. I think you'd have to be really, really stupid to be, to be putting up these kind of aberrational numbers right now and drawing so much attention to yourself. You'd have to be pretty dumb. But on the other hand, he may say, "Fuck it, he's not going to the Hall of Fame anyway, so why not make the money he can make now?" So who knows? He might say,
no,
"I'm going
I
to do
agree with
anyway."
you. I think it's more of a talent. I think it's more of an adjustment. I don't think and good for him, But 7.4 million votes is pretty impressive. You have to give him credit for that. And I'm happy for the Grandy, man. And why not? He's probably He's probably been a Yankees' best hitter all year, most consistent. Yeah. So he deserves it. There's no doubt about it. And Josh Hamilton, I've always had a soft spot for him because I'm happy he got his life back on track after the drug and drinking problems he had. So I'm always happy for Josh Hamilton. And Poppy's Poppy, whatever.
There's no other DH hitting that well. So
it was like in the '90s with Edgar Martinez. They just stuck him in there because it was the only guy you could think of. So
all right. So here's the pitching rotation. Josh Beckett was having a great year, of course. Aaron Crow out of Kansas City. Gio Gonzalez, King Felix, Brandon League, Chris Perez, David Price, Mariano, as always, 12th All-Star selection. Yep. James Shields, his first time around. He's having a tremendous year. That clown, fat-ass Jose Valverde, Justin Verlander, Jared Weaver, and C.J. Wilson. So, of course, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people beefing with CC Sabathia. He's probably having his best actual year as a Yankee so far. Ron Washington obviously put his buddy C.J. Wilson on the team. Hard to argue with that, obviously, like you said. You'd like to see Sabathia on the team. He wasn't probably going to pitch anyway, so, just to get the accolade, but a guy like him doesn't really need it. So I think he was deserving of being on the All-Star team. Am I going to throw a shit fit because he didn't get on? No, I don't think it's that. I don't really care that much. So, right. To me, I'm actually a little more aggravated that, a guy like Brandon League and Chris Perez made it over a guy like David Robertson.
Yeah.
Who actually has the lowest ERA of any pitcher with at least 30-something innings. I forget what it is. His ERA is basically just a little over 1. He's basically, outside of Mariano Rivera, I think he's been possibly the most lights-out reliever out there. So to me, that was more almost of an oversight than CC was. And another guy who definitely got screwed was Michael Pineda of Seattle. Not getting on the team. So, to me, I would have taken up Brandon League, who got Seattle's representative. Oh, actually, you already had Felix anyway, so you didn't need another guy. So,
right.
I think Robinson should have been in there over League, and, I think Pineda should have been on the team as well. Over that fucking moron Valverde, who I cannot stand. He's pregnant with fucking quadruplets.
He's just like, what's his name? Who's that other reliever back in the day that had a little punch there? What the hell is his name? Pitched for Florida. I can't think of his name.
Well,
but,
it's nothing like that.
Yeah.
No, it's nothing like Valverde's. This is ridiculous. Okay, here's the reserves quickly. Adrian Beltre, Asdrubal Cabrera, Miguel Cabrera, Michael Kadire, Jacoby Ellsbury, Matt Joyce, Howie Kendrick, Russell Martin, Carlos Quinton, Matt Waiters, and Michael Young, who's had a very good year. Russell Martin is an interesting case because catching is pretty weak, like we said. I mean, he's only batting .220 right now, but he had a great April. And defensively, he's been phenomenal all year, throwing out a lot of runners and leading the Yankees to having the best, second best pitching staff in baseball right now. So hard to really argue. Same thing with Matt Waiters, not having a great offensive year, but I mean, there's such a catching dearth right now that it's hard to argue. And I think the Angels, is Howie Kendrick their only guy? Oh no, Jared Weaver. Okay,
Jared Weaver. Yeah, it's been a rough year for the Angels in that aspect.
Yeah.
But clearly nobody can. Talking about managers, nobody could really. Ron Washington is going to get his detractors from not picking CC and maybe picking the wrong Mariner, but I think you can make the same case on the other side of the coin for Bruce Bochy, the manager of the world champion San Francisco Giants. I mean, look, I'm not a Yankee fan by any stretch, and you could accuse Joe Torre of jacking up the late '90s AL All-Star teams with 3/4 Yankees. But let's just remember, folks, and I'm not sitting here beating the pinstripe drum, but those Yankee teams were pretty damn good. And they
exactly.
That '99 team. I mean, the '99 All-Star game at Fenway, which was a ridiculous slap in the face because I think 7 of the 10, or 7 of the, well, not including starting pitcher, I think 7 of the 10 slots were Yankees. I think O'Neill, Tino, I think half those guys were on. But you know what? They won 125 games a year before.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? So it just happens. Your managers are going to pick their favorites. And
of course, the other guy, too, that definitely got, I think, screwed in the AL was Paul Konerko at first base.
Yeah,
first base it is tough. It's very deep. I mean, you got Teixeira, who leads or is in second in home runs. Having a very good year. And then obviously we have Cabrera, Adrian Gonzalez, and Konerko's batting .319, 21 home runs, 62 RBIs, OBP just under 400. So he's having a tremendous year as well. So first base very deep. It's hard to say, but there's always going to be guys left off. So. Right. Go. Why don't you run down the NL teams, because actually there's one glaring omission from that team.
Yes. The starters for the 8 position spots for the National League All-Star team. Catching, Brian McCann of the Braves, having a good year. First base,
like the AL, McCann's like the only. I mean, there's no other catcher.
Yeah, he's only the legit catcher.
Unless
really.
Buster Posey's having a good year, which he is not. It's hard to really.
Right, obviously Posey's out for the year, but he was having a decent year when he was playing, but obviously he's broken leg, he's out for the season. Prince Fielder, obviously starting at first base for Milwaukee, contract year, so he's obviously hitting the crap out of the ball. Ricky Weeks for Milwaukee, congrats to him, his first All-Star pick at second base. Placido Polanco, who for the scumbag Phillies, I hate all of them, but he's in his second pick. Obviously, the only real legit Met, Jose Reyes, who is leading the National League in hitting, but probably won't play because he, as usual, hurt his hamstring. For a guy who's one of the fastest players in all of baseball, the guy's got the weakest hamstrings I've ever seen.
Yeah, so he's having a tremendous year.
He is having an awesome year. Oh, I'm not denying that, and he's leading the league in hitting and deserves it. But he may not play because he hurt his hamstring on Saturday. The outfield, Ryan Braun in Milwaukee, who's probably the best overall hitter on the Brewers. Prince Fielder's the masher, but Ryan Braun might be the best overall hitter.
Yep. Here's
the surprise pick, cast off the scrap heap when the Yankees got rid of him last year, but Lance Berkman for the Cardinals is having a great year.
Yep. And
it's his 6th pick. And then Matt Kemp, which is a nice highlight for a otherwise moribund year for the Dodgers because, poor Donnie. I just feel so bad for him. But Matt Kemp makes his first All. So we got 2 rookies on the All-Star starters this year, Ricky Weeks and Matt Kemp.
Yep.
The starting pitchers, the pitching roster.
Yep.
Heath Bell, closer for the San Diego Padres, having a great year, third selection. And the one of 4 Giants pitchers, Matt Cain, is in. Another former Yankee, Tyler Clippard, makes it for the Washington Nationals, having a pretty good year out of the bullpen. Cole Hamels, Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee all make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess statistically they pretty much all deserve it. I hate to say it, but they all deserve it. Yeah, it's hard to argue all 3 of them. Joel Hanrahan, the one Pirate, is in. Jared Jurgens of Atlanta is his first All-Star team. He's having a pretty good year.
Mm-hmm.
Clayton Kershaw for the Dodgers is in, his first pick. A lot of rookies on the National League team this year.
Yep.
Cliff Lee, as I mentioned. Tim Lincecum, duh. I think Bochy wasn't going to put him on. Johnny Venters, the closer for the, I believe he's a closer, right? For the Braves. Is he a closer, the 8th inning guy?
No, yeah, he's not the closer.
No, I think he's the 8th inning guy.
Yeah, I can't remember the closer's name.
And then 2 more Giants. Brian Wilson, who was the closer with his fake beard for the Giants, and Ryan Vogelsong is in for the Giants as well. The reserves, Jay Bruce for the Reds, his first All-Star, finally maybe starting to show his potential.
Yeah, he's having a good year, but there's definitely a couple guys that probably should have gotten it over him.
Carlos Beltran, which he's having an okay year. I think he's got like 14 homers and like 50-something RBIs.
Yeah, good year, but again, a guy that there's other guys better than him.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have put him on there. 6th All-Star pick for him, and this is a Met fan talking. Starlin Castro, his first All-Star appearance for the Cubs. Matt Holliday, 5th pick for the Giants. Chipper Jones, the old man, got only 7 All-Star appearances. I could have sworn you would have think he'd had more in his career. Yadier Molina, bum, for the Cardinals, his 3rd pick. Another guy I can't stand. Hunter Pence for Houston. You got to pick at least one Astro. His 2nd pick.
No, I mean, he's having a good year. But...
Yeah, he's having a good year, and he is the one Astro. Brandon Phillips for the Reds, second year pick for him. Gabby Sanchez makes his first appearance in the All-Star game, first base for the Marlins. Troy Tulowitzki, Derek Jeter National League, 2nd pick for the Rockies. Joey Votto, last year's NL MVP, in his 2nd year as an All-Star. And finally, Justin Upton for the very surprisingly good Arizona Diamondbacks. Mm-hmm. He's the one Diamondback, I believe. Yes.
Yep.
That makes the team as well, his 2nd pick. So there's your National League team.
Of course, the glaring omission, and this guy's not even in the final 5 vote, and that's Andrew McCutchen from Pittsburgh. To me, is the biggest oversight of this. Batting .294, 12 homers, 46 RBIs. playing basically, phenomenal outfield for a surprising Pittsburgh team that's I think they're just a few games out of first, honestly. To me, he's the biggest glaring oversight. Tommy Hanson, pitcher for the Braves, also having a tremendous year. And I know you mentioned Venters, but there's another guy I cannot think of who their closer is right now. Who's also another guy that kind of got overlooked. Drawing a blank. But those are the Shane Victorino also having a very good year. But to me, McCutchen should have been in over Beltran or Jay Bruce.
Well, right now the Pirates are a game and a half out of first place.
Yeah, so they're playing out of their minds. So
yeah,
to me, he's definitely someone that should have been, because he's one of the young leaders. Just from baseball's point of view, that's a guy you'd like to have in a game like this for this young team finally making a run.
Right.
Both them and the Nationals having good years for their franchises. So those are two of the teams you'd probably like to highlight a little bit.
Right. Yeah. No, there's some picks here that I'm kind of surprised at the Carlos Beltran pick as well. I didn't think his stats were good enough to warrant, being on the team. And with Reyes already there, you already got the one token Met, so I don't think you really need to add any more. Considering the rest of the guys that are potential All-Stars are all hurt, from Ike Davis to David Wright to Johan. I mean, it's just been. I will say this though. And we'll talk more about this maybe next week. We do like our midseason report. People are already telling me, you should be pretty happy the way the Mets are right now. They're 500 for a team that's pretty much a injury-plagued mess. Terry Collins may be the early pick for National League Manager of the Year. Although right now it'd have to go to Tracy for.
Yeah.
Right? No, I'm sorry, Clint Hurdle. Clint Hurdle's the
Arizona,
right? Clint Hurdle. No.
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, yeah.
Well, I mean, Arizona, too, obviously.
Yes. Who's the manager of the Kirk Gibson.
Yeah. It's hard to, he's another guy. So I think Collins, I think he's arguably has a chance, but I'd have to go with Hurdle or.
No, I agree. I mean, if the Pirates stay in this race, and they could. I mean, this division's not that great. I mean, I don't think the Cardinals are that good, and we talked about it on our preview special. I don't think the Cardinals are that good anyway. The pitching is shaky at best. Pittsburgh has a legit chance, as is Milwaukee. I picked Milwaukee to win the division.
How about an argument for Girardi in the AL? You think with all the injuries they've had, the pitching staff that they've cobbled together, no other manager really having a dominant showing in the AL. I think he might have a shot to win that one.
Well, you got him. I think you got Manny Acta in Cleveland. I mean, they're in first place. I mean, he deserves some votes.
Are they still in first, Cleveland? I thought they were out.
No, they're a game up on Detroit right now.
Okay, all right.
There's a lot of good American League. I mean, Ron Washington, they're still already in first place. I can't remember who the Mariners manager is, but they're only a game under, and they're only 2.5 out. I don't understand why. Getting into the managers for a minute, I don't understand why the A's fired Bob Guerin. They're only 10 games under. I mean, they're only 7 games out of first place. I don't know. I just don't understand why Bob Guerin was fired in Oakland. It's just a side note, but there are a lot of good managers that should get picks, and I agree that Joe Girardi is one of them. But I like Manny Acta with Cleveland. He deserves it, and even Mike Scioscia. I mean, they're only a half game out, and they don't really have that good a team this year. So there are a lot of picks for good manager of the year in the American League.
All right, so I think that pretty much takes care of the All-Star game. It'll be interesting, as always, next week, and the Home Run Derby, and then we move into the second half of the season. So,
yes.
Of course, we did want to switch gears again now and talk a little TV quickly, which we haven't done in a while, and that is to talk about the return of the great Curb Your Enthusiasm, which returns next Sunday.
In the doctor's office earlier, there's a guy sitting there, a skinhead, okay? He looks at me, and he says, "What the fuck are you looking at, Jew boy? What? Fucking faggot."
What? What? What you do?
What I do?
Yeah, what you do?
I slunk out.
You slunk out?
I slunk out.
So you didn't do shit, and you punked out. That's what the fuck happened, right?
Yeah, I punked out.
How'd that happen?
What was I gonna do? The guy could have killed me.
Next time a man call you a fucking faggot, you getting that ass, Larry. Know what I mean? You getting that ass, Larry. That's what the fuck you do.
What are you talking about?
You let the man slide today. You gotta immediately get in somebody's ass when that happens to you. You pull their asshole open, step into their asshole, close the door behind you, like a spray paint can, right?
Uh-huh.
Larry was here.
You spray paint Larry was here, wash me, all that kind of shit. Fuck his whole asshole up. These Snicker bars, throw some paper on the floor, read a newspaper, ball the paper up the newspaper, and throw the newspaper on the floor. Fuck his whole asshole up. You know?
Of course, that's the great Leon, and we will not, justify obviously the words of Leon and Larry David do not have anything to do with the Place to Be podcast, the choice of language. But
I would hope so.
Of course, it is a great show that does return this Sunday to HBO. So actually, we were having a special guest, but we're seeming to have some issues technically. So hopefully, we'll have him on in a moment.
Oh, I thought I heard the wind coming out of his window.
Yes,
so.
he was, but he was hoping to get to a more steadier spot. So, all right. Well, let's quickly move on. Then we'll get back to Curb in a minute. Let's talk about the. I don't know. Do you have any comments on Ryan Dunn from Jackass's death? That was one of the Facebook questions.
I mean, Jesus, his blood alcohol level was redonkulous. He pretty much tweeted a picture of him, and he looked like he was dead at the table. I mean, the guy driving was absolutely stupid, and I don't like, you don't wish death or you don't justify death, but he knew obviously he was stupid enough to get behind the wheel that trashed. He took the risk and he paid for it. So
yeah, I mean, I was actually pretty pissed off. There are some people really like a couple of idiots I've seen that were really upset about it, and I was like, this guy was just like you said, tempting fate, and the fact that he didn't kill anyone, thank God.
Right.
But I have no tolerance or time for idiots like that go out there and do that shit. So to me, I really don't have that much more to say other than whatever. I'm not glad that anyone's dead, but I'm glad he's off the road as a menace. That he apparently was. So
obviously, yeah. Does it make the show any less funny? I don't know. Probably not. When I think of the show, I think of Johnny, I think of Steve-O, and I think of Bam Margera. Those are the only guys I really think of on that show. I didn't even know who he was until somebody told me he was drunk and died. I honestly didn't even know who he was. Not I didn't know who he was, but it didn't hit me as long as the other guys would. Johnny Knoxville or Bam or Steve-O. So Steve-O was actually, on an opposite note, Steve-O was just on two other guys. Steve-O and somebody else were just on Minute to Win It, the game show with Guy Fieri, and they were playing for charity. So obviously Steve-O, as much as he's kind of a dipshit on the show, is actually not that stupid a guy. He's actually has a book coming out. He's doing some stand-up tours. So obviously some guys on that show are smarter than they are on camera, and some guys are as dumb as they are on camera. So it's sad to see that. I feel terrible with his family and everything. But he tweeted a picture of himself, and he looked like he was so far gone. Somebody should have, and that's the irresponsibility of his friends. Somebody should have driven the guy home.
Right.
I mean, just because they're celebrities doesn't mean that they can't be responsible adults.
Well, take a car service. You obviously, I'm sure you had the money to afford it.
Yeah, exactly. Or a cab or something. I mean, it's just stupid. Absolutely stupid. It's unfortunate.
So another idea we had, we were going to do a little list of Mania, but the show's actually running a little bit long. I was hoping to end with our Curb discussion, but let's quickly maybe just get into a little brief list stuff. What we were going to do is kind of talk about the July pay-per-views. Maybe this is something we can do in full next week. Mm-hmm. But quickly, looking through the cards, what do you think is the best? Because there's actually been quite a few really good July pay-per-view cards. What do you think is the best one?
Well, there are a lot of good July pay-per-views, but top to bottom, there was a good stretch. Probably from, 95, which is the first year. 95 show was a little shaky. But 96, pretty much through 2003, every July pay-per-view was actually really good. Not really good, but some had some really stellar matches, and others were good overall shows. It's hard to argue not to argue that Vengeance 2003 was probably one of the best July shows of all time. That show, top to bottom, is awesome. Even the disgusting Vince blade job where he cuts his temple open and his brains fall out of his head against Zach Allen.
Yep.
But that triple threat of Kurt, Brock, and Big Show is excellent. But then you got the year before of Rock, Kurt, and Taker from Vengeance 02, which actually top to bottom is a very good show as well. I'd have to say probably the best top to bottom. I'd have to say the best top to bottom July pay-per-view is Fully Loaded 2000. I think that's a solid show. You got 3 great matches. You've got Rock and Benoit, Triple H Jericho, Kurt and Taker's not that bad. It could be worse. Val and Rikishi in the cage is actually a very entertaining match. I like that. I like that show. I think Fully Loaded 2000 and Vengeance 2003 are 2 exemplary July pay-per-views.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a loaded month as far as pay-per-view history. Like you said, those 2, you got Invasion 2001, which is an excellent show.
Yep.
And of course, Canadian Stampede in 97, really considered to be one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time.
Yes.
Granted, it's only 4 matches, but 2 of the matches were, fantastic. And the other 2 were very good. So, as far as my personal favorites, I'd probably go Canadian Stampede, just out of, nostalgia mixed in with being a great show. Top to bottom, it's hard to argue with that Vengeance 03 card. Vengeance 02 also very good, but yeah, Vengeance 03 really, really was an awesome show. And Fully Loaded 2000 again, very good show. But that one really was carried on the back in my eyes of the last 2 matches. Venus and Rikishi in the cage was good, but Triple H, Jericho, and Rock Benoit really the 2 matches that carry that show. The rest was good, but not. I don't think it's as good as an all-around show as 03 was.
Okay. I forgot how much I liked, obviously, Canadian Stampede. And probably, maybe this is one of my guilty pleasure shows, but more because for the main event, I think you know where I'm going, is the International Incident in Your House from July of 96.
Yes.
I love that show. I love that main event. Camp Cornette against the People's Posse. I always love that nickname. Sean, Sid, and Ahmed. All 3 guys I was marks for back then. Not maybe as much. Actually, the guy I liked the least of that team was Sean. That was actually a huge mark for both Ahmed and Sid. But
of course, they had the great build-up, the Psycho Sid, when he comes crashing through in the Cadillac. So
and the Crown Vic almost kills everybody, and it's hilarious. And obviously, even the first July pay-per-view, In Your House #2, as much as most of that show is probable crap, the Shawn Michaels Jeff Jarrett Intercontinental Title match is probably one of Shawn's probably 10 best matches. It's probably the best match Jarrett I've probably ever had. So even that show's got a gold, has got a gold star on it. Even though Brett and Taker were in dark matches.
Right. Yeah. That'll be an interesting show once we get to our, our vaults when we get to that point. And of course, since you get the little lull, 04, 05, 06, when you start getting to the bashes. 07, even 08 was a little shaky, but of course last year July pay-per-view was the Money in the Bank, and as we talked about, it was a very, very good show. The 2 Money in the Bank matches, and then all stuff where Ray retained his title against Jack Swagger, and then Kane came out after winning Money in the Bank,
cashed it in
under a minute. So, and of course Miz won that, and then you had Sheamus defeating Cena in a cage in the main event. So. Yeah, I mean, July ends up always being a pretty good show. And, a lot of people talk about the summer doldrums in WWE, but apparently July is able to escape that other than a few years in the middle. What do you think, I guess this kind of goes along with the best show, what do you think the best main event was of these? Do you think you stick with, I don't know, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes by guilty pleasure. I do love the triple threat or the 6-man tag, but if you had to give just pure energy and excitement, you got to go with the 10-man tag at Canadian Stampede. That match is ridiculous. Obviously, for those that don't remember, the pay-per-view was at the Saddle Dome in Calgary, so obviously it was Hart Foundation centric, and it was Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil, Owen, Bulldog, and Pillman against Stone Cold, Shamrock, Goldust, and the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, in a 10-man tag. And just, even during the introductions, I mean, Steve was he was eating that up, and he was obviously almost pretty much a full-blown babyface at this point, but up there, they wanted to freaking throttle him, and he loved it. He ate it up. And obviously, Canada's first family got their introductions, and when Brett was introduced, the place went bonkers. Just top to bottom, that entire package, even the post-match where Steve just went crazy, and he was handcuffed, he was flipping off the Calgary crowd. I mean, Stu came in, got a couple of kicks in. I mean, it's just top to bottom. That whole package is awesome.
Yes.
That might have to be the greatest July main event of all time. Although I will give honorable mention to Rock, Taker, and Kurt at Vengeance 02.
Yep.
That match is pretty awesome.
Of course, and then also Rock Benoit at Fully Loaded 2000, like we mentioned earlier. You also you kind of get that next tier of matches that were, back when SummerSlam was like a WrestleMania, and July was used as like the build-up show, like we mentioned before.
Right.
You got the really fun Steve Taker First Blood match from '99.
I like that match.
Yeah, the cool little tag match with Taker and Steve against Kane and Mick, kind of capping off that feud in '98. So, back in even the International Incident main event, like you said, the matches that were kind of building towards SummerSlam.
Yes, because Vader obviously got the pin on Shawn in that match, which set up their title match at SummerSlam in Cleveland. Yes.
And also, of course, the forgotten inaugural Raw from Invasion, also another good match.
Yes, the 10-man where, of course, Steve turned heel and joined the alliance.
To end Hulkamania.
Join the alliance. And Hulkamania, yes. I can't remember July pay-per-view, really, if you think about it. Oh, well, at Vengeance 02, he and Edge lost the tag team titles to the Un-Americans of Christian and Chris Jericho. So he was at one July pay-per-view.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Obviously, it was, 9 years ago tonight at SmackDown in Boston. One of the most memorable SmackDowns ever, because that was the first time since King of the Ring 1993 that Hulk Hogan actually came out to Real American.
Yes.
He had been coming out to obviously the Voodoo Child, even as a face. But that night, obviously 4th of July in Boston, he came out to Real American, and he and Edge beat Billy and Chuck to become World Tag Team Champions. One of my favorite moments.
I guess we kind of missed the obvious list we could have done. That was a great 4th of July moments, but you saw the one where Edge, after the RVD pot smoking bust, when Edge won his title back. On that,
yes, I was in Philadelphia. Where was I? I was on vacation when that happened. Where was I?
Maybe you were observing the man with the girl.
Yes, I was stalking Animal and Hawk at the gym in Minnesota. Yes, but I remember watching that match. Yes, that was 06. Where was I in 06? I don't remember. Anyway,
all right, well, speaking of stalkers, we have someone on the line with us right now, and we wanted to go ahead and bring him on. We'll get back to the curb discussion that we started about 5 minutes ago. We got our technical difficulties straightened out. Of course, that's our good friend and big fan of the show, and that's Andrew Flanagan. Andrew, how you doing tonight?
Welcome, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good to have you, making your big debut. It only took you 43 episodes, but you're here.
In the immortal words of our good friend Matt Rotella, we welcome the Tower of Pain here.
Well, the Tower of Pain has already surpassed any of Matt Rotella's appearances.
His excitement level after 30 seconds already usurps any of Matt over the 6 hours he's done shows with us. But Andy, always a pleasure.
Hopefully, we don't get any hate comments like we did from Matt's last appearance. You can't say we don't listen to our fans. We haven't had them back since. So,
all right, so let me. I'm going to take the floor here because this is your guys' show. Although I will say, when I do come visit. We do catch some. I have caught some really very good episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and this is a show that I am going to get into. Justin, I know you own the most of the box sets.
Yeah, I actually just ordered because I wanted to get the Nitro DVD, and of course it's $20. So to get the free shipping on Amazon, I ended up throwing in the last season of Curb. So now I do have all 7 seasons. So.
Okay. And I think they're on Netflix Instant Queue as well. Of course, this show, a little background for those that don't watch it. The show debuted back in. There was a special in 1999, on October 17th, and then the first actual season debuted in October of 2000. And obviously, for those that don't know, Larry David is obviously one of the co-creators of Seinfeld with Jerry. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people compare the two shows, think the two shows are different. I want to ask you guys this before we talk about the new season. From those that watch, that are big fans of both shows, and just to let everyone know, the episodes I watched, my two favorites, the one where Larry is talking to the weather guy, and I don't remember what the plot of the episode was. You guys may remember better than me, but he mentions the classic line of "There's a jet stream of bullshit going up your ass." That was actually one of my favorite quotes of all time from that show. I don't remember what the plot of the show was of that episode. And then the other episode is the one where Larry goes to the Dodgers game with the hooker. That's my other favorite episode. So I don't remember what season that was, but those are my two favorite. Those are the two full episodes that I've ever seen from the show. So
yeah, of course they're on. This will be season 8, and the way the format goes is they only do 10 episode seasons. There's really no rhythm or rhyme like most HBO shows. They just kind of come and go. Mm-hmm. And every year Larry says this is going to be it. He doesn't want to do it again, and then he ends up getting an idea, and he gets talked into doing it again. So, it seems like he said before he thinks he's got at least a few more in him. So, it's just a lot for him to come up with. They try and have a season-long arc where they have all different stories throughout the season, but they have one major, angle going on, I guess, as you'd say. And last year, of course, was the epic Seinfeld reunion, the first time that all those characters had been brought back together since Seinfeld ended in 1998. So that was kind of a big deal. They had the whole season was him trying to get the reunion back to back up and running, and then of course in the last episode they do the reunion. So, Andy, I forget, did you end up getting to see all those episodes?
I did eventually, yeah.
All right. So what was your take on that whole Seinfeld thing? Was it worth all the build up? Do you think it paid off enough in the end?
I think so. I mean, like you said, just seeing all those guys together again was just a unique thing. And it was certainly funny enough. I mean, I really enjoyed that season.
Yeah, and I like how they did it too. How they had him doing it for a reason, and that was to win Cheryl back. So there was a lot to it there. And then I almost forget at the beginning of that season they had all the stuff with the blacks still. Where he was trying to break up with Loretta, who had cancer. Trying to find a way to dump her. So that was pretty good. And of course, the controversial clip we played in the beginning, which I already apologized for, was
which you pretty much, it was worse than Punk's promo.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to put up an apology, a public one on Facebook or something. But of course, I actually
did find the two episodes quickly that they're both from season 4. The one is called The Weatherman. Larry's angered by a weatherman's wrong forecast, so Larry scares the Green's daughter with a hideous photograph of his tooth plaque.
Yep.
And then the other one is the carpool lane. Larry finds an innovative way to use the HOV lane while driving to a Dodgers game on time, hiring a prostitute as a passenger in his car so he can drive through the carpool lane. Larry attempts to get medicinal marijuana for his father. Marty Funkhauser is reluctant to give up his dead father's seat.
Marty Funkhauser was awesome, by the way.
And the episode was involved in the Juan Catalan incident. So
yeah, that was the Juan Catalan incident. Actually, was and I think it explains it in Wikipedia. But just to give a quick overview, this guy was, I forget what he was up for, some kind of trial, and they found him in the background in one of the Dodger Stadium scenes. So he ended up clearing his name by being in the episode. But
yes, that's right.
Marty Funkhauser is played by the guy who was Super Dave Osborne. And he's really, really funny in the show. And actually all of their little spot guys that show up here and there, like Ted Danson is really, really funny in the show. Jeff Green, played by Jeff Garland, is really, really funny. So they have a lot of good guys. And if you're not aware of the structure of the show, it's actually an improv style. So what they do is they give, and Scott, tell me if this sounds like another show you guys are familiar with, but they give basic plot points, and they say, all right, in this scene we're going to do this, this, and this, and then they go out and ad-lib the whole thing. So, of course, we know of another famous show very similar to that. But,
yes.
I think that's a cool way to do it, because then you get a lot of genuine reactions. And you can see a lot of times where, Larry and Jeff are cracking up in the scene, and it's real, because they're ad-libbing the whole thing. But, Andy, why don't you tell us, before we get to the new season, what are a couple of your favorite episodes? If you can narrow them down. I know it's hard.
Well, yeah, the obvious choice is the Crazy Eyes Killer episode. I think everyone goes immediately to that one. It's just fantastic. The whole episode is great. Beyond that one, I was trying to think of some. I think the Anonymous episode.
Yes. With
Ted Danson donating to the, what was it, a museum?
It was the National Resources Defense Council.
I completely forgot about that. But I just love that episode. The whole the whole thing with what's his agent's name? Jeff. Why am I blanking? Jeff, masturbating with his
me. And that was one of their best as far as like tying. They're really, if you thought Seinfeld was great at like tying together multiple storylines into one big, climax, Curb is just so fantastic. It's the stuff you aren't even thinking about all comes back at the end. And that to me is,
if you just list the plot lines from that episode, it was, him being pissed that Ted Danson gets credit for being anonymous and then losing a shirt at the dry cleaner.
Yep.
And what was the other plot line? Episode of Jeff masturbating in his bathroom. Yeah. Somehow those all come together in a perfect way. It's just
was
amazing.
That also, that wasn't the one where he steals, no, it's a different one, where Larry steals the flowers from the Funkhauser Memorial. That was a different one.
No, that's a different one, yeah.
Yeah, of course the one with the Anonymous has the tremendous Susie coming in and yelling at Larry and Leon. And I wanted to talk about Leon quick because he was the one in that clip in the beginning. Of course, He kind of came in as like an ancillary character in the season before the Seinfeld season. They adopted a hurricane family, the Blacks, and Leon was the cousin who already lived in L.A., but he comes and lives there anyway with the family. And he just started stealing every scene he was in. He was just so funny, and they ended up keeping him around like all of last season. And of course, he's already going to be. We know for sure he'll be in this season because he's in the preview that we saw. But he was great too. I was, I gotta watch those once I get the DVDs. I gotta watch last season again. He was in that one where he tried to pretend he was. He tried to pretend he was an actor or a doctor. Oh, he was a doctor,
yeah, he's
right?
supposed to be the doctor for Michael Richards. Oh, that was fantastic.
Yeah, dude.
He had to pretend to be Jewish.
Yeah, that's right, the Jewish white guy. And I'm sorry if you guys haven't. We won't go on too long about Curb because we could probably go on all night. And no one's probably gonna really care too much. But if you don't, it's definitely a show you should watch. I mean, if you're a fan of uncomfortable humor, because that's what it is. It's similar to The Office and Seinfeld. It's just a lot of uncomfortableness. And Larry David, to me, is basically on genius level with some of the stuff he comes up with. And he, you want to hate him, but you can't help but side with him most of the time because generally he's right. It's just the way he goes about doing things is wrong. But he always usually in his principle is pretty correct.
Do you guys think that now this is the 8th season, and there are obviously it's mostly going to be filmed in New York, right?
Yes.
Most of it or some of it.
This season is set. I think it's even set in New York. I think this is the first time they're going to set it there.
Right. The first 6 episode titles are already out. One of them is called Palestinian Chicken. So good luck with that one. Ricky Gervais is rumored to be in an episode. He'll guest star in at least one, as is Michael J. Fox will be in an episode this season.
Okay. So. I can only imagine what they're going to do with that poor guy.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that...
Oh, my God, I forgot all about Wheelchair... Was it Wheelchair Wendy? Was that this last season, too? Was it Wendy? Was that her name?
What episode was that? When he goes to brings her to the party?
Yeah, he's dating the girl in the wheelchair. And he had the name for a wheelchair. Was it Wheelchair Wendy or something like that? Remember he's dating the girl in the wheelchair?
Yes, I do. It must be because that's when he was broken up with Cheryl.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, Scott. Go ahead.
No. I have the seasons on the screen here, so I'm trying to look up quickly. Which if I see the episodes about.
Now, Andy, what's your take?
Oh, here it is. Denise.
Wheelchair
Denise handicapped. Larry begins dating a disabled woman, Denise, who requires a wheelchair. They plan to attend a Kim Chi-yun recital being held by Larry's friends. That's right. Larry's unable to contact his new date after Susie throws his BlackBerry in the ocean.
That's right, handicapped Denise. I thought it was wheelchair something too. I guess not. I think there's another character in that episode that's wheelchair something. I think there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
Andy, what's your take on Cheryl? Because I know some people kind of don't think she's the best actress. Do you think she's a fit for that show, or do you think they could do better?
I don't think I've ever really had a problem with her. I mean, she doesn't quite do the improv thing as well as everybody else, but I don't know. She's believable as his wife, and she, certainly plays the straight man when he's being ridiculous really well. So I have no problem with her.
Yeah, I remember being kind of happy when they broke up and he was going to do the thing with the Blacks at the end of that season. But then as the last season went on, I realized, maybe the show does kind of need her.
I never thought it made any sense just from afar because she's incredible. I don't say she's incredibly hot, but she's
too hot for him. Certainly,
she's very attractive, and he's he's Larry David. So you never thought it kind of made no sense. But I like her. I always thought she was a good balance to. You always got to have those actors in series like that where they're not. You can't have everybody being funny at the same time, or else it's just overkill.
Yeah, but this show comes really close it's almost like outside of her, like everyone else is like really, really fantastically over the top, and that includes. Like people like Leon and Susie, who's one of the best characters on the show, just in the background. So, honestly, I mean, I don't think there's ever been a full ensemble like they have on that show that like everyone in every scene is really freaking good.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that this season, I know he always talks about them being the last, but did you ever come to a point during this past season, either of you, where you thought that maybe they were starting to reach the end of the line and maybe they had jumped the shark, or do you think this show could still just keep going?
Go ahead, Andy. I'll let you take that one.
Go ahead, Andy. You can go first. You're the guest.
Yeah, I've never seen any jump the shark moments. I mean, I don't know what that would be. The end of the season with the Blacks when he ends up with what was her name?
Loretta.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times when I thought, that would be the perfect way for the show to go out, but I still want to see more episodes. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I'm happy for them to keep making it as long as they can, you know.
I mean, that seemed like a scene. I definitely thought the show was ending with that scene.
Yeah.
And even actually the year before that, with the where it ended with Larry finding his real parents and everything, like that seemed almost like a season ender. But that was actually the worst season of all of them, I think. So I'm glad that they did come back from that one. You know, I don't think they jumped the shark because I think they do so few episodes. It's not like other comedies. You know,
They're
a lot of
just
people
filling time.
Exactly. And a lot of people saying, "Oh, The Office is going on too long," or Seinfeld went on too long. I mean, Curb, you know, he's done 7 seasons, but only done 70 episodes, which is not a lot. So to me, I think there's still a lot of room for them to do things. And I think the way they do the show with the improv and all the various actors that they bring in, and I mean, look at the Seinfeld season alone. That breathed new life into that show to have a full season just focused on that. So to me, they still have a lot of stuff they could do along that level. You don't want to get to the Entourage point though, where you have episodes and storylines based on just to see how many stars you can squeeze into a show. And that's kind of what Entourage got, but I don't see Curb going that way, just because of the way they do things. I don't think it'll get to the point where it's just, oh, look at this guy, oh, look at this guy's here. They find shrewd ways to work them into everyday life. So, but with that, I think we should probably wrap up. Andy, anything you want to see specifically in this upcoming season? Just more of the same, anything you're hoping for?
My big thing is I just want to see these characters again, like you said, Funkhauser and Richard Lewis and Ted Danson. I'm just happy to get to spend time with those characters again.
Nobody uses Richard Lewis's toilet. Richard Lewis is another guy, yes, we did not mention, who is also fantastic on that show. And Ted Danson as well is tremendous. So, Scott, any final Curb thoughts you have before we wrap up?
Well, I have not ever seen consecutive episodes. I always catch them when I'm visiting you. But this is one show that I will definitely watch from the beginning. I always found it, and this is maybe another debate for another day. And Andy, would love to have you back on for this as well, since you're a Seinfeld fan. But somebody told me that you can't be a fan of one show and not of the other. And I'm curious. I'd like to actually open that up to listeners for a future podcast, because I don't dislike Seinfeld. I really don't. I just never watched the show enough to elicit an opinion. But of the Seinfeld episodes I've watched and the Curb episodes I've watched, I think I like Curb more. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it flows better. Maybe I find it funnier. Maybe with HBO, the rains are off, so the swearing's funny. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, you get more edgier storylines. But I mean, Seinfeld, when you factor in the fact that it was on, network TV during a time where you couldn't really completely push the envelope, to me, it's pretty genius when you look at it at that level. But I think Curb, I can see why it would maybe have more mass appeal, just due to some of the storylines they could do. But like you said, that's definitely a topic for a longer.
Yeah.
We have more time, but we want to thank Andy for joining us. We'll definitely have him probably after the show, after the season, to wrap it up. But with that, we'll probably wrap the show. We will be back later this week with Survivor Series 1990. And then next week, obviously, we'll start 1991 and also may try and come up with another list show or something similar. Yes. And then Scott will be on vacation, so we'll have a week off, and we'll be back hopefully with another great interview for you fans. So,
yes.
For our friend Andrew Flanagan and my PIC Scott Griscolo, I am Justin Rosero. Thank you for listening, Place to Be Nation. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.